We're going to call this meeting to order for the regular meeting of the City Council for Tuesday, March 13th. Could we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? First, we're going to have the Warren Police Explorers are going to present the colors. Ladies and gentlemen. Along with presenting the colors with the Warren Police Explorers, we're going to have the Girl Scout Troop 30079 from Wilkerson Elementary, led by Mayor Taylor, will join us or lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Come forward and along with the Explorers, and please lead us.
Ready? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you to the Girl Scout Troops 30079 and the Warren Police Explorers. You're welcome. All right, we'll have roll call. Patrick Green. Here. Scott Stevens. Present. Keith Sadowski. Here. Robert Bacamino. Present. Kelly Collegio.
Here.
Stephen Warner. Here. Cecil St. Pierre. Here. Number 4, Mr. Secretary.
Number 4, adoption of the consent agenda. Motion to approve.
Motion by
Discussion.
Mr. Secretary? With
motion
support
by
with,
Stevens,
yeah,
support by Green. Discussion. Mr. Stevens.
Yes. Thank
Yeah,
you, Mr. Chairman. On the consent agenda, item 4A is in re De La Salle Collegiate versus the City of Warren, which is a pending litigation with the City of Warren, and for that reason, I would ask that the vote be a roll call vote. It's required to have a 2/3 vote roll call so that we can approve the going into a closed session on the 19th, and then additionally, item 4M, we would like to add to the consent agenda, which is a recommendation received from the Planning Commission, amendments to the zoning ordinance number 30, Appendix A, zoning article 15, C3 wholesale intensive business district, section 15.01, uses permitted, subsection E, used car lots, regarding the regulation of used car lots, and approving a moratorium of such for 6 months. And then Councilwoman Collegio would like to remove item 4H from the consent agenda and place it on the regular agenda. Is that correct, Ms. Collegio? Thank you. 4I. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Collegio, did you want to have the floor for? All right. Is there an amendment? There's an amendment to the motion. Mr. Green, you support. I'll question the motion. Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino.
Yes.
Ms. Collegio.
yes.
Mr. St. Pierre, yes. Item number 5, Mr. Secretary.
Item 5, adoption of the agenda. Motion to approve.
Motion by Stevens with the amendments. Support by Ms. Collegio.
Discussion.
Discussion. Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's see here. The clerk's office has requested to remove item 14 from the agenda. That item, while it appeared in the newspaper, there were there's a requirement for actual mail notification to individuals, and there were some individuals that weren't notified, so they're going to go back through that process, and as such, the clerk's office has asked to remove that item.
Item 14 is removed. Any more discussion? Is 4I, where are we going to put it on the agenda?
4I will become item 17B.
Any additional discussion? 4A wasn't removed. Yes.
No, 4A just required the roll call vote.
We took a roll call. Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Colegio?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. St. Pierre, yes. Item passed unanimously. Item number 6, Mr. Secretary.
Item 6, approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of February 28th, 2012.
Motion?
So moved.
Motion by Warner. Support? Support. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Item number 7.
Item 7, approval of the bills.
Any motions? So moved. Motion by Green, support by Bacamino. Discussion.
Mr. President?
Ms. Colegio.
Yes, if Mr. Malzett could come up for just a moment. Good evening,
Council.
Good evening, Mr. Malzett. And thank you for answering all the questions yesterday when I came in the office. But page 5, J&B Medical Supply, $960 for EMS, correct? I know we bid that out because I remember seeing it before, you know, but my question with this, EMS, the revenue generated from EMS goes into its own fund, correct?
No, it does not. It's part of the general fund.
So it goes into the general fund.
Yes, ma'am.
So the EMS doesn't have its own, when we generate revenue, it just goes into the general fund. It doesn't have its own fund.
That's right. Currently, the cash that's received from the EMS revenue does go into a separate bank account that's pooled within the rest of the Treasury accounts, but at this point, there's no special revenue fund for EMS.
Okay, so but when they brought back EMS, maybe I just misunderstood because I wasn't here, you know, at the time. But that revenue, so it's not slated for the running of EMS?
It is not. No, it's just part of the general fund.
So it just goes into the general fund?
Yes.
Okay. I must have misunderstood. I thought that fund was just self-regulating for EMS. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any
That's
further discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Stevens.
Thank you. Through the chair to Mr. Melzick. Mr. Melzick, you know, I'm looking at some of the highway street lighting bills on there, and the first one on page 1 is for $264,058.84.
Yes.
And over the years, I've noticed that we pay quite a bit of money for street lights. How much do we pay total for the year?
Approximately $3 million.
$3 million a year for
Yes.
street lights. Now, the item right underneath it is also for highway street lights, lighting, but it says electrical service. And that's only for $9.09. Is there a difference? Do we pay two amounts for street lighting? Do we pay a certain amount for maintenance, and then do we pay another amount for the actual electricity?
I don't know all the specifics of that bill, but I believe there are at least two components. There's the poles, there's the electricity, etc. I would have to get more detail on the contract to give you a full answer on that.
Okay. And do we have, how many streetlights do we have throughout the city? Do you know?
I'd have to get that information from the Public Service Director.
But we do have a record of that?
Yes.
Okay. Could you get the total amount of streetlights that we have, along with, make that part of your report?
Sure.
If you could?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any further
If I could just ask one more question, I apologize.
Please do.
Thank you. Mr. Malzett, going back to the EMS, that revenue fund that you have set, it goes into its fund, but it really is for the general fund, correct?
Correct.
We haven't moved that, right? I mean, that stayed in that fund, like we haven't had to tap into that. correct?
Well, yeah, all that money's been it's all in one bank account, but I think since I've been here in the year and a half or so, there's been a lot of confusion over that. There's not a separate account for EMS revenue. It's part of the general fund. As an example, that money hasn't been touched, but in the same breath, when the men that work on the EMS rigs, the EMS rigs themselves, to pay for that comes out of the general fund and not a special revenue fund.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I have a question. Do we adjust the street lighting to reflect daylight savings time in order to save electricity?
I'll add that to the report.
Thank you.
I'll find
I
out.
just out of curiosity, I know that's why I think Arizona is the only state that doesn't change because of the money that it possibly saves. I have a question on page 18 on the list of bills, check number 516343, and it is to OLHSA. I don't know if that's an acronym of some kind. I saw a check in the amount of $84,664.68, and it sort of stood out to me. And it's a housing agent and for services. And can you tell me what that's for? And is that pursuant to a contract?
Right. Let me get back to you on that one. I do not have the detail here tonight for that.
Mr. Green has filled me in a little bit, but I'd like to see a little bit of the background on it.
Absolutely. I can get that for you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Then we'll question the motion. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Ms. Clegio?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Werner?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. St. Pierre? Yes. Item passes unanimously. Item number 8, Mr. Secretary.
Item 8, approval of the Building Authority checks meeting of March 6, 2012.
Any motions?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Werner. Support. Support by Sadowski. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, Mr. Werner?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Ms. Clegio?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
No.
Mr. St. Pierre, yes. Item 9. Mr. Secretary.
Item 9, announcements.
Are there any announcements?
Mr. President?
Mr. Bacamino, then Ms. Clegio.
I'll yield to the councilwoman.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. I just wanted to make note that on the consent agenda tonight, Mr. Gregory Jacob, excuse me, was reappointed to the Senior Health Commission. I always like to make note when someone volunteers their time on one of our commissions, and I know from working with this gentleman in the past, he's a great asset to the Health Commission over there. Thank you.
Mr. Bacamino.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to recognize today a new group that Councilwoman Collegio and I attended. I think it was last Thursday. I want to correct me if I'm wrong. It's the Warren-Centerline. Mr. Burnett, help me out. Of Warren Centerline. I knew there was Warren Centerline in there somewhere. Friends and neighbors of Warren Centerline, and I like that. It was a very friendly, neighborly kind of meeting. I think there were about over 40 people in attendance from all over the city, mostly though in that area where Owen Jacks is located, but there were Centerline people there as well. I know I even got invited to the, I believe, the Knights of Columbus fish fry. I was reminded over there. I think it's on Bernice Street. So that's a little competition, I know. But it's nice to see that even the name implies it's hopeful, it's a positive meeting, problem-solving kind of group of people, and the friends and neighbors. So anybody out there is welcome. And I wanted to, if you could just wave your hands, anybody in the audience that attended last week, so the rest of the council and everybody could see that it's going to take cooperation. Everybody working together, thank you. And it doesn't matter that region there, Centerline is our sister city there, and working together. I saw a lot of people helping out good ideas, and they were duly noted, and we'll meet again next month. I do want to say it was a fun meeting, too. There was a raffle, and the grand prize winner, I promised I'd mention her name, Barb. I won't embarrass her by mentioning the last name. I just said, but Barb won the grand prize. There's a raffle every month, too. Prizes are given out just for attending, so it is a fun meeting to attend, and there was food and drink, too, coffee, and all kinds of stuff, and I think that's going to continue. So if you're listening, if you're in the region, Owen Jacks is at the 7 o'clock on Thursdays, first Thursday? Third Thursday. I'm glad you're here because I would have messed it all up, but it was a good time, and I'm looking forward to the second meeting of the club, so it can only grow. Thank you very much for attending tonight, and appreciate it. And one other note, I do know that St. Patrick's Day is coming up here on Saturday, and we were lucky that, I guess, Michigan State won the Big Ten championship, so I'd just like to say, go green.
Party on.
And you can say go blue too if you want, but I thought I'd beat Mr. Green to the punch.
Let's have some order on this.
That's it, go green.
Yeah, losing control here. Any other announcements?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Werner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No, and that's why I avoided that.
I'd like to announce for the Warren Goodfellows, I know Christmas is a far memory, but the need goes on for the Warren Goodfellows. They're calling out the need for food and clothing and also monetary donations. The food bank is getting low again. The need is year-round, and they also need some help if you'd like to donate some used furniture or used appliances, as well as food and clothing. And the monetary donations go towards helping with utility bills, toys and books for a children's hospital, children's eyeglasses and dental work, Holiday Angel program with Easter coming up. They could use some help with that. And if you'd like to make a contribution, you can contact Daryl Nyaport at the Warren Goodfellows or send a voucher off to Post Office Box 555, Warren, Michigan 48090. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Sadowski?
I'd also like to congratulate U of D. I understand that they also made the tournament as well. So good luck to everybody these next couple of weeks. Also, with Lent still going on, St. Sylvester's will have their fish fry on Friday. They start at 11 o'clock, so if you're looking for a lunch, perfect opportunity. Fish is fantastic. They run all the way till 7 o'clock. The ladies' auxiliary there also has a bake sale that goes on every Friday, and they also sell pierogi. So go hungry and eat a lot. So that's St. Sylvester's Church on 12 Mile, and that is between Hoover and Van Dyke, closer to Hoover Road. Thank you.
Any other announcements?
Just if I can add one more thing. Councilman Bacomino and I also had the pleasure of being in a meeting with approximately 25 or 30 residents last Friday. The topic of the meeting was, the rentals and landlord issues, and it was very exciting to see so much, interest in the community, and I felt it was a very good, open meeting, and I think we had a good dialogue, and I know we're both working on those issues, and I believe Councilman Stevens came at the end of it as well. He had another obligation before it, but next month, the second Friday, we'll be having another meeting, and it'll probably be an open topic, any concerns in the area, and at the next council meeting, we'll announce it again. So, but the second Friday of the month, Owen Jacks, 7 p.m. We'll try to make this, something that happens very often and keep open dialogue. Thank you.
I hear the coffee was superb. That's all I'll say about the coffee.
Are there any other announcements? We did have a committee of the whole meeting last Monday in regards to the rentals, and I thought a lot of good ideas came out of that as well. And just for the record, my son and daughter attended Michigan State University. I'm a graduate of law school, so okay, there you go. All right, well, Mr. Secretary, next item.
Next item is 9A, Council President Cecil D. St. Pierre Jr. INRAE update on the City of Warren Water Department water meter installation, late fees collection efforts, landlord-tenant issues.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Two council members were not present when the city made a rather large contract decision and quite a big change in the city in regards to the water meters. Installation of water meters on residential and business properties are going on as we speak. We have, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's 50,000 units approximately, and we have about 18,400 done, just over 30%. National Field Service is doing the installation into the housing and into the businesses. I really had no idea about this project until I came into office and saw what a large project it is, number one. and the effort that we have to do in regards to a city in order to, how do you say, manage and install such a large number of water meters. The city customer service operation is not involved in setting up appointments. It's National Field Services, and they're doing a great job with the help of Tom Polakowski, who's here tonight. The city has set up a process to notify residents, and I thought it was important as a part of the notification process. As my wife and I work, my children are at school, and I thought, well, I'm not home, and how do we get it done? Well, they've taken the steps necessary, and I think it's part of information, if anything else, to notify people as to what they can expect to have their water meters installed and to make sure it gets done. And communications with residents and what they can expect. And Tom Polakowski, I do have all the information that you've given to me. Maybe you can outline those measures that you've taken in charge of the water department to make sure this job gets done. And quite frankly, I think you've done a great job in making sure that every possible opportunity everybody has in order to have a water meter installed. And I think it's a great project that you're managing, and I'm glad to hear that it's going so well. I have not heard too many complaints from anybody in District 3. Maybe they haven't gone there yet, but maybe you can inform the residents about the notification process and a few other things that we can talk about. If you have the floor. The mic. Is it going?
Can you hear me now? Sorry. Just to provide a current update, as of today we have over 20,000 meters installed. That's 40% of the population of accounts that we have to convert. We are finding homes that we're going into have issues with code violations that we have to go back and swing through those homes to get those fixed. Some of the customers have completely made the water meter inaccessible for any type of conversion. So we have to have those corrected. And we'll do that with follow-up visits in the future. We'll give them notification, give them a chance to respond so that they have an opportunity to make those changes. Currently, with the number of meters we've taken out, we have cut consumers' annual meter reading bill by $160,000 currently. We anticipate to save around $380,000 when we're completely done. Right now, we're changing out approximately 10,000 meters a quarter. So we anticipate, and we have a projected completion late this year or very early in the first quarter of next year. So at that time, that concludes our complete installation. We will still have some things to do after that, to go back through and clean up problem areas or problem accounts. We've had a lot of features to the system for the benefit of the community. There is an online access for every customer on the city's website to go in and see their water bill account, and there's 3 years of transaction histories in the account online for any customer who has online capability. One other feature I'd like to promote is that we can offer electronic billing. I've taken it. It works very well. It comes out about the same day that the bill's supposed to be mailed, so you can get your bills mailed to you electronically instead of through the mail. We would encourage people to do that, particularly accounts that have multiple meters. Becomes very efficient for us because we do save the mail service and we save the postage. We save the company that does the mailing for us, preparing the mailing and so forth. So we do save money by doing that. The thing that the President, Mr. St. Pierre, talked about, he wants me to go over the notification procedure for the homeowners. It's a very multiple process. It starts out with initially passing out a flyer, and National Field Services does this by going door to door. They hire a person to go through the area, pass through it, and put a flyer on the door of the home, not in the mailbox. Once they've done that, once the installers come through, they'll knock on the door, see if they can get into the home to do a change out. If they can't, they are supposed to leave a yellow sticker on the door saying, hey, we're here, please call National Field Services, and there is a number on that ticket. If that customer does not respond after a week or two, then National Field Services sends out a letter under their signature to the customer, we're by your area, you do not respond, please call so we can make an appointment for you. If they do not respond to that, we then send out another flyer with my signature on it saying, we've been through your area, we mailed you, you failed to respond, we would appreciate you making an appointment. If you do not do so, we may turn off your water. We don't say we will. We say we may turn off your water services. People are misinterpreting that. They think we will turn them off. We will only work with them. We want to encourage them to make the appointment with us. If they fail to do that, the next step is that I have the water service, water utility operators, we prepare a blue card for them, and they take it and they put it on a door and they say, if you do not respond by such and such a date, your service will be turned off for failure to make an appointment. The card is very clear on that. Most of the people respond once they get the blue card. We have some isolated instances where we turned off. Those happen to be landlord, tenant properties in the most cases we've had for whatever reason. We also know that some of these people who do not respond, 80% of the ones who don't respond have delinquent water accounts. So we're anxious to get back in there, and we use the blue card for that purpose. And that's the basic notification process. When the installers actually go into the account and they do the installation, they take a picture of the register, so we get the reading. There's 6 dials on the register. We get the reading. We also have them sign a document that's 2-part, carbonless. They sign it. It tells them what the reading is. They sign it in the installer. We keep a copy, National Field Services, and they give a copy to the customer. And that is to help us arbitrate any misunderstanding about what the water bill is at the change-out time.
In regards to that reading, is that reading what the correct water amount bill should be?
That is the reading on that register, on that meter at that time. And that's what it is when we take it out of service.
Okay.
And then from that, we have prior reading, and then we take the prior reading, and that difference becomes the amount of water that was consumed at the time we did the change out.
Okay, so that is either deficiency and or overage.
If the account is current, being actually read, that will be accurate. If the account has been estimated,
okay,
then there could be a problem with that bill. And typically what we run into, for some reason, consumers didn't read it. And what that presents, it presents a problem, because as soon as the customer gets it, if they haven't been read for a number of months, they're getting a catch-up bill typically.
Okay.
Then they're surprised by that. Then they're in talking to us about the matter, this is not my water consumption. I don't believe it, this type of thing. So we have that dispute to obviously work through with the client.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
But once on the meter, that's the actual, we hold the line on billing them for that consumption.
We're going to come back to this.
Well, actually, what I wanted to point out, something that Mr. Polakowski did not say, at least when they changed my meter out, the gentleman, as part of his checkout procedure, they actually took a photo of the meter itself.
It's true.
I verified that the number on the meter was what he wrote down and what the photo was. So there is...
You're absolutely right.
So they do that as redundancy, so...
They double check it.
Yes, sir.
And when our installers, because we are also changing out meters with our own crews for different reasons, we go in to change out a new meter, they have a smartphone. When they're in there, they take anywhere from 3 to 5 pictures of the phone, the transmitter, the document the customer signed, our work order, and any other thing that we feel is important, like if there's a space problem, we move the appliance. We want to make sure there's no damages, because we have some seniors that have their appliances, particularly their washer dryer, too close to the meter, you can't get in there to get, so we are very careful. And National Field Services won't touch those. They'll send them to us. We'll try to go in there, get the customer aware of what we're trying to do, and we try to work with them so we do not damage anything, because if we damage anything, the first thing they say is, you create the problem, you need to fix it. And that would be a problem for us. So we're very careful on how to handle those sensitive issues.
Mr. President,
Ms. Collegio.
if I could ask just a few questions as well. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Kalikowski.
Good evening.
Yeah, going back to the bills online, I went online yesterday and, I started typing in just random streets, and it's not just your own water bill you can pull up online. Like on the city website, I can pull up anybody's water bill online. That just slightly disturbs me. It just feels kind of invasive. I think the thought is we have a lot of snowbirds, so if you see a house that's somebody's watching, and you go through and you see a house that there's no water usage for months, and it's in wintertime, it kind of tags an empty house, and it's just kind of, I don't know, invasive. Going through that, I saw several in a certain area that had delinquent water bills. Like on one street, I counted $4,000. Okay, that was just one street. What are we doing to recap, delinquent water bills? Is there, when you go through with these meters and you're installing meters, and the people that you mentioned that the people you find that are kind of running away from you getting in there installing, do you find, you said a lot of them are people that are delinquent with their bills. Are there steps that we have in place that we're trying to do to recapture that money?
We do not have an active collection process. What we do have is when we run into problems with bills, then we'll bring it to the attention of the customer by sending them a notice or a letter. Okay? By Michigan applied law, we are required to send a letter, give them 10 days notice, follow up, record and document it very well in our system, and then if we do a turnoff because they fail to respond, we have to document when did we do the turnoff, when did we send the notice, what date did we turn them off, etc. So it's a pretty involved process. The thing that we're caught up in is we tried collections late in 2010 and through the early part of 2011. When we started this aggressive meter program, we are overwhelming our resources there. We don't have the resources to do that. We're currently working overtime to handle the work we have plus the meter change-out. So as soon as we get further through the meter change-out, we intend to take a much more aggressive posture, probably somewhere after mid-year, probably the third quarter. We will then start to send out letter notices to the residents that are delinquent. We now have an aging system that somebody brought up. We have to program the report and refine the aging report. We're going to go after those accounts that are probably over 90 days first. Work the worst ones down, and then continue. Once we get those under control, we'll start to compress that. Now, I've been particularly involved in a lot of major accounts that have very large delinquencies, and we've been successful. But some of these, to collect them, have taken 4 to 6 months of my part just to get these things collected. So they take a lot of individual attention, and that is a particular problem when you have limited resources and you can't do everything. It is an issue, and we will address it once we get through the meter change-up, because we will have more robust reading. We will not have, right now with consumers, and some of the people here know in the past, we were estimating anywhere from 7 to 10% of our monthly bills because we were not getting reads for various reasons, like can't get in the yard because it's locked. They got a dog. You can't get access because there's bushes or something. You have a problem when you actually go to take the read on the box outside, it's malfunctioning. These are problems, so we have to estimate these. They create major problems for us because we're billing monthly, 50 customers, and if you take 10% a month, you're talking 5,000 accounts you're estimating, and that's not all the other things we do. We got customers out there that want final bills. We got to write work orders to get the crews out, so there's a lot of work in this department. This whole system we're putting in is to help us make this department more robust without continually to add resources. Our objective is obviously one, make it efficient, 2, go after these delinquent accounts. And I think you'll see some major improvements as we get through the second half of the year. As soon as we can get out of, we're changing out 800 meters a week right now. And that is a problem for us doing that, plus all things. Plus, we get 4,000 to 7,000 phone calls a month with this group. And a lot of it has to do with billing questions.
And that's what we're hoping to do tonight, is to provide some of the information so
Right,
anybody
if I
is
could-
watching. Ms.
Yeah,
Lee, do anything?
yes, if I could ask you another question. I know something that came up at the meeting we had, down at Owen Jack's, was that someone mentioned that their meter froze. So these meters will freeze if the heat is turned off in the house, correct? And if a meter freezes, who is responsible for replacing that?
If the meter is frozen, okay, currently with our system, we have no way of knowing that. The meter freezes, it freezes. If the meter freezes and the register's running, with the new system, we'll see it. With the old system, you wait 1, 2, or 3 months, or wait for somebody to call, they gotta froze the meter. As long as the meter is allowed water to go through and it's frozen, we'll see that high volume going through that meter register. That will give us, because we have exception reports that allow us to determine when meters going backwards, when there's high consumption, or when there's any tampering with the meters.
Right.
Because we are finding homes getting water right now that have straight-through pipes and no meter.
Okay, so who is responsible? If your meter freezes in your basement, who is responsible for replacing? So people should know not to
Okay,
let...
by ordinance, the responsibility for the meter and protecting the meter is the homeowners. If the meter freezes, the homeowner's going to pay for the replacement of the meter and anything else that they damage the city property in there.
Okay, and then I know we have, right now we have like 5,000 vacant homes in the city. When you go to vacant homes, are you, we had a discussion regarding turning off water in vacant homes. If the water is turned off in a vacant home, would that stop the meter from freezing, or does that have nothing to do with it? I'm not very mechanical minded,
Okay,
obviously.
these vacant homes are vacant for different reasons.
Right.
We send out the bills every month. We get roughly anywhere from 1,800 to 2,200 back a month of vacant. We record that in our database because we keep track of that, because they're vacant for a reason. Now, they could be vacant for a while, some could be vacant, some may be ready for demolition, and that's all we do. We do nothing with that vacancy other than we know it's vacant. Okay, for us to follow up on that, we have to put special effort in it. That means we're going to take people, which is our limited workforce down the water garage, off of that to go do that. We can do that on an exception basis.
And can we turn off the water on vacant homes so we don't
Well,
get
first of
squatters,
all, we gotta make
and, yeah,
We got to make sure what's the reason for the vacancy.
right.
Is it truly vacant, or is it a rental that's just empty out there and these are coming back to us?
But if they're rental and they're empty in it, and then they come back in, do we go back out and put the meter on it so they're accurately
Nope,
read as well?
We need to have the homeowner's approval to turn that off.
So we can't turn off the water on a vacant home if it's...
If it's truly vacant, we know it's
Yes.
vacant, and we have authority to go in and do that, we'll turn it off. If
Okay.
somebody reports there's a house out there that has a broken meter in it, and water in there, we'll turn it off.
Right.
Now, a number of these vacant homes are already off.
So will a water meter being in a home be a requirement to get their, like when a landlord comes in, they'll be required to have one of these meters in the home, correct? So they can be accurately read as well, correct?
By ordinance, they're required to have a meter in the home, unless there's something they're doing with the home with regard to broken pipes, busted pipes, or some other...
Okay, and just one last
They may
question.
not have a meter in there.
Okay.
Some people take the meter out themselves for whatever reasons.
Right, but then they'd have to replace it, they'd have to pay to replace it as well, right? And just one last question, I called you earlier today and we had a short conversation regarding why we bill monthly. I know there's a thing on the agenda tonight, for the cost of the billing, and I don't know what the cost of the mailing is monthly. I don't know if you had a chance to get that from
I can tell
me.
you that in our budget for this year, we have budgeted $210,000 for postage. Now, most of that is for the monthly water bills.
Okay, all
Probably
right.
that's running maybe $15,000 a month. And the
Okay.
rest of it's for other postage that we use for purposes of mailing notifications to customers for other reasons.
Okay, and then I know Sterling Heights does it quarterly, and you explained a couple of reasons why we do it, monthly, but that's a large savings that we want to aim for in the future, and you were talking about that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Now, back to our presentation. In regards to the notice provision, the National Field Service has a technician. Why don't you tell us about that so the residents know who they're dealing with?
Okay. The First piece of literature we pass out identifies National Field Services. They have a picture of one of their installation technicians. It shows them in the picture with a cap with field services on it. They have a badge identifying them as field service employees. They also drive a vehicle that they put field services on the door of the vehicle so people know that field services is there. That is our contractor. And they have 16 installers who are on the road doing installations daily. So those people have identification on them.
And make sure that they show the identification and make sure.
Make sure, and we tell the homeowners in the initial publication, if you have any question, the police department number is on that flyer, and they have the obligation or the right to call if they have a concern, and they will voice it.
I have,
I have not had any complaints about identification,
I'm glad to hear that.
which is kind of interesting.
No, it's good news in that regards. Now, back to some of the points that Ms. Collegio, because we're going to get to that, and we had discussed it in your office as well. In regards to the late fee, just so there's no myth or misrepresentation by anybody, if you have a late fee, is there a percentage if you do not make your payment on a timely basis? What is the late fee?
Okay, by ordinance, our late fee is a monthly late fee on the balance due. If they miss the due date, which is typically the end of the month, if they miss it, it's 3% of the unpaid balance on that bill at the end of that month.
All right.
If it goes on to a successor month, then there's another 3% for the successor bill on the unpaid balance. It keeps rolling forward month to month, and each month it accumulates, that it's late another month, it accumulates another 3%.
All right, so the idea is to get it paid as soon as possible.
Yes.
Okay. Secondly, some people, I heard that it's a 17% is the late fee. Can you tell the residents when and only when would such a late fee be applicable at that time? 17%.
The fee you're referring to is that any unpaid prior year water bill, like we're looking at 2011, is not paid by April 30th of this year. That will incur a 17% lien transfer fee when that delinquent bill gets moved over to the property taxes. They have an opportunity to pay that. We have put in our current bill that's going out this week a heading in the top, notification, pay your 2011 water bill or you will be assessed the 17% penalty. This year we're giving him two notices, one in March and he'll get another one in April.
Okay. And that's to ensure that we get at least have a lien on the property to make sure water bills get paid eventually.
Well, what happens, it gets the lien, it goes over, and then the county's involved in the collection, so.
And that's where we can also lose it in these days.
But they'll have an opportunity to pay that when they get their 2012 mid-year property bill in July. That'll be on that bill, and they'll have a chance to pay that water bill, I believe. I maybe have to stand corrected, but I believe that's what happens.
All right, Ms. Collegio brought up this point, and I was going to address it, and we had talked about it. Landlords, as a general rule, do not get notice of the water bill. The occupant does. Correct?
That depends.
Okay, and how does it depend?
That depends on the arrangement the landlord has with the tenant.
Okay.
You got two players in here. Typically, the landlord's the one renting out the property. They are taking responsibility if they have a tenant in there, and they're relying on the tenant to pay. The bill is going to the property address as occupant.
That's right.
Now, if that tenant doesn't pay the bill and the landlord isn't overseeing it somehow, then they're getting stung because we have tenants that are renting up huge water bills and skipping out on water bills, rent, and so forth.
Okay. Now, you also enter into landlord-tenant agreements. Is that right?
We have what we call the landlord-tenant agreement.
Why don't you explain to that tenant and or landlords are listening?
Okay, in simple language, it's a contract between the landlord, the tenant, and the city of Warren. They sign an agreement. The tenant posts a deposit against a potential water bill of the future. We hold that as a deposit at City Hall. We monitor those accounts with our customer service agents on a monthly basis. Anyone that's not paid, we send them a notification immediately. We have 120 accounts like that. If you put 5,000, if we have 5,000 renters, we're never going to have the staff to keep up with it. See, so who do you want to have the accountability? The accountability is really the landlord. They're renting it, and they're putting the tenant in there.
It's a bill. It's got to be paid.
It's got to be
That's
paid.
allocated to the property, and
Now-
that's why it's his problem or her problem.
Now, some landlords pay the tenant's water bill, and they monitor the account. And if they see they're out of control, they're changing the rent they're charging the tenant.
And now with
I've
this-
worked with some landlords who own many rental properties here where they're working that particular element.
And we have the situation now, they can check it online as well.
Right. And we're telling the landlords that service is there, so most of them have internet capability, and once they understand it, they're starting to check themselves. So we're doing everything we can to educate them. It's a tool to help them manage that household account.
And the last point in regards to, I think City Council is going to have to put in some ordinances, we're going to have to create some policies in regards to collecting water bills, because we have to have some power, and maybe we talked about it at the Committee of the Whole meeting. It's a balancing act. When you talk about turning off someone's water, you're turning off a utility which they need in which to live. And so where do we decide to turn off water, or how long do we let the water bill run? And those are kind of things I think we're going to have to address.
By ordinance, anybody that's delinquent, okay, with a notice, can have their water bill turned off. The power's already there in the ordinance. It's just a matter of having the resources to follow up and make that happen.
And subject, is there anything, any exception in the ordinance for any special cases?
Well, we run into cases like Heritage Village. They have big delinquencies with the master manager and sub-managers over there. There are 14 sprinkler meters over there. Some of those had bills of $50,000 delinquent. We can't post that against the property because it is a sprinkler meter in the field. It's not against, it's for a association to pick that up and see that that fee is spread into their particular homes that they represent. What happened, they got very careless and ran these systems and were negligent in following up and getting these fees collected. So when they started to assess about a year ago, 2 years ago, a special fee of $120 extra a month, we had some of those homeowners coming to us asking us what were we doing. We weren't doing anything. The association were creating that. They were asking us to explain it to them, so they had to go back. So we started working with the association managers. We've got several of those big ones over there completely cleaned up. Of the 14 meters, I think we have 1 meter yet that's a problem. There's a successor manager in there right now, and they are pursuing the prior management company for not exercising their management control. We'll see how that goes. The account has maybe $20,000, $30,000 worth of delinquent water bill.
Mr. President. And, you know, I wanted, when this first came into being in regards to changing these water meters, I know you met with many Warren residents and people that were very concerned with it, and looking through the notes you provided, they were provided with everything. I know you went out of your way in order to provide all the information possible for everyone to be educated about this, and I think you should be commended for the effort that you did make. And the other point I wanted to make is, as far as the City Council is concerned, maybe we can address these collection efforts in regards to maybe revising the ordinance if we have to, and whatever you need from us, we'll be there for you as soon as you get this program through. We'll be glad to help you out. Mr. Bacamino?
Real quick question.
And I want to thank you for coming out here tonight, providing the explanation.
If you would, I'd like to make a brief comment, because I know you had a meeting of the whole, a week ago Monday, with the building division, and we have had some meetings with them, both in the rental unit and that, and we're trying to share lists and see what we can do to identify these vacant properties, what's the status, and we're going to try to work through that. Be patient with us, give a chance to work through these lists. I gave them a list of 2,200 properties, which are the bills that came back to us vacant. They have that list. They're working on that, plus what they have. So I think we'll have more integration amongst the various departments in the city to try to see if we could somehow nip this thing and get it under control.
Well, the concern was with these vacant buildings having the water left on is that they leak. And once a house is vacant and it leaks, it only gets worse so fast. So those are the kind of things that we brought up in the committee of the whole, and I'm sure you did hear about it, and we appreciate that. Thank you. Mr. Bachmino?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Polakowski, the delinquent bills in the city, again, talking about collection, what does that do when we don't collect on that to the rest of the citizens that consume water? Does that drive prices up, or does that affect the rest of us, or no?
That has not had an impact because the bills that go over to the county get collected. I know some of these properties are now going into tax sales. We're seeing some different outcomes. We've had to write off some of the water bills that are unpaid. Okay, that'll be something for us to be sensitive to going forward here because of the housing problems, as you all know, and what's
When they're
happening to
unpaid, though, does that then come back on us? Do we lose that money?
If the money that the state collects is less than the liabilities on the property, the last bill that gets relieved is the water bill.
Correct, okay.
So we have the liability if it's not enough money to cover the total outstanding debt on that property.
Okay. Now, the new meters, though, the last question, I'll let you go, because that's back to the meter question. Will these then allow us to determine who, for whatever reason, is shoplifting water or stealing water faster? Because I know that goes on. Sometimes you mentioned some houses have pipes directly into them without a meter. So this would help us in collection, locate, or?
Well, as you know from the past, we estimated that the under-registered water runs about 3.5% of the total water that's consumed in our community. That's worth about $600,000 a year to us. That's one of the reasons we've got these meters in here. So some will see some impact, some will not.
Do we roughly know what percentage of our population do not pay their water bills right now?
Well,
what are we
last
delinquent?
time I saw, there was something like 8,000 to 9,000 out of 50,000 that were delinquent.
How many?
8,000 to 9,000.
8 to 9 out of 50. So
And I'm using the
yeah,
judgment,
just
but
under
in that
20%.
area-
Near 20%. Then you're telling us don't pay.
Repeat?
That's around 20%, just under 20%.
It's under 20%.
Yeah, okay. And that, we are going to have to make efforts then to get that, because it's a lot of lost revenue.
And that's something we have to look at as city council. We'll be glad to work with them right after he
Okay.
gets this project done. I think he can spend the time that
Thank
needs to
you.
be done. Thank you.
Awesome.
Appreciate you coming out tonight, and I hope that Warren residents learned a lot from this, because I know we did. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you,
Mr.
Council.
Stevens?
Yes, if I may, through the chair to Mr. Polakowski.
Yes, sir.
I just have one question, or actually two, but they're related. On the meters that city employees install, how do we handle that with NSF, with National Field Service?
They do not get reimbursed for anything we do.
All right, so,
All we're paying for is, which is purchased for us, is the meter and the transmitter. The labor they charge us, like for a 5/8 meter installation, they charge us $35. They do not get paid. We keep a record of that. They're aware of that. They only get paid for the actual installs they do.
right. And to date, how many meters have city employees installed versus?
The last look I had was last week was 620 some.
Oh,
Since
that's
we
not that
started the
bad.
program last June, middle of last June.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Chair? Mr. Sadowski.
Thank you. Mr. Polakowski, I think part of the reason why you're not having an issue with identification, when that letter goes out and is taped to everybody's door, a photograph of that installer's there. And they're there within a week. We just had our meter put in about a week ago. A very efficient gentleman, was easy to deal with. Work was done clean and literally done in 15 minutes. So I can see why you're not having a problem, because that person's being identified in that photograph, and they're there the next week. So.
And that is a very stringent requirement with National Field Services. They
Right.
know that, and they do everything they can to make sure that their people keep the identity on the vehicle and on themselves.
Correct.
And if they're not, please call us and let us know, because I'll be the first to complain to National Field Services when it does not happen.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Mr. President, if I could just make one last question really quick.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Polakowski,
Ms. Cooley.
thank you. Going back to 20% unpaid water bills, right, delinquency to the city, it also costs the city in the fact that, you know, we bill monthly because we have to keep our cash flow and everything going to run the department, so it comes back around and kind of kicks us on the backside again. You know, I would think, you know, if it was me, 20%, I would think that we would pause right here, and everybody should get together and find a way to collect these fees. It does cost the residents. If it's landlord fees, then we don't relicense. We have to really sit down, and I know Mr. St. Pierre is correct. We need to sit down, as a council, but we need to get very aggressive. We're coming up to budget, and we're seeing people slashing and cutting. It's going to happen. It has to happen. So, and I understand your stress. This was a huge program to put in place. Kudos to you. I'm not saying anything your way. I have a lot of respect for you, okay? But I think the city as a whole, city stat, we have city stat. Mr. Hartley was showing me some things today. I think we should really pause right here and really look at it. One street, I just looked at 5 houses, $4,000. So that's just my comment. Aggressive. We have to be aggressive. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, his budget's separate. His budget's already been balanced, but it'll help the general fund as well and help all of us. But nonetheless, Mr. Green.
Mr. Polakowski, thanks for being here. I just got my letter taped to my door yesterday. And just one little observation, I know you have a photo of the installer on there, but what might be helpful too is have a photo of the truck, because I've seen them working in different areas of the city, and it just says field services on it. That's it. No logo, no anything else.
I don't know if they have a logo, but
I would have expected just a logo. So if I just see something, looks like somebody just put stickers on the side. So put a photo of the truck on there as well, because I have 2 things I can
ask them if they can do that.
All right, thanks.
I thank you. Next
Anything
item,
else?
Mr. Secretary. Thank you again.
Next item is item 10, which is a public hearing, determination of a nuisance at 21740 MacArthur, vacant, dilapidated, 1.5-story vinyl house with crawl space, rat wall, garage, porch, and fence, and consideration and adoption of a resolution.
This is a public hearing. Is there anybody who would like to discuss this matter before the public?
Good evening. Henry Krasnovchek, longtime resident, City of Warren. For the sake of transparency and following the charter, I want to announce to the public that this home is in District 5, and the representative of that District 5 is Mr. Bacamino. This does not require a roll call vote to abate a home in Mr. Bacamino's area. And I don't know why, Mr. Chairman, you keep violating the charter and failing to recognize we're in the districts. 8 years ago, when you were on council, at that point, it was strictly at large. And why I'm at it, there is one member district that's missing up there, and that's District number 3. The people who live in that District 3 do not have a representative sitting at that table. I see 4 districts being representative and 3 at large. The chairman is at large candidate and he represents the city at whole. He can't wear 2 hats. Again, this is strictly a District 5 problem on this item. Thank you.
Anybody else from the public to speak on this matter? We'll close the public hearing at this time, bring it to council for motion.
Motion to approve?
Support.
Motion by Sadowski, support by Bacamino. Any discussion?
Yeah, Mr. President.
Ms. Colegio.
If I may, I stopped by City Hall today, and I spoke with the rental division, and this property is owned by a landlord. So I just want to make note of that, a landlord that is in default to the city for water and back taxes on this property. It just brings up the point that we were discussing again. Here's another landlord property going into nuisance abatement. We're just going to have to make sure when it comes back around that it isn't on the taxpayer's dime. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I have a question, I guess that I have to, through the chair to the city attorney. The city charter says that no positive action shall be taken for anybody that is in default to the city. So anybody that owes any money to the city, we can't do anything positive for. And in my estimation, tearing this house down for this landowner would be something positive for them, doing something positive for them. And the fact that they have a a license to rent homes within this city is also something positive. You know, my estimation, their permits to rent houses should be revoked immediately for this landlord. If I may, through the city to the city attorney.
Ms. Michaels?
Thank you. In order to declare somebody in default, that person would have to receive notice. That's procedurally what would be required before somebody can be declared in default.
Thank you. In that case, I would make a motion to table this item so that we can provide notice to that landlord. The city should not be paying to tear houses down for business people. Thank you.
Anybody have any further discussion? Ms. Michaels? There is a motion.
I would support, yeah.
Is there support?
Yes.
Did you make a motion to table, Mr. Stevens?
Yes, support.
And
I
is there
support.
support by Ms. Collegio?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Motion by Stevens, support by Collegio to table. Mr. Stevens?
Yes, table.
Ms. Collegio?
Yes to table.
Mr. Bachmino?
No.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
No, because the city attorney looked like she wanted
Well,
to...
that's a no. Mr. St. Pierre, no. We go back to the original motion.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Green?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to the city attorney, you had another point.
Thank you. Through the chair, Councilman Green, Councilman Stevens. This particular landlord would not be receiving a free service from the city. The cost of the abatement would be assessed to that owner, and we would proceed either with the collection lawsuit or leaving the property for the cost so it would not be a free service.
Continuing
I have a...
through the chair,
Go ahead.
continuing through the chair to the city attorney, this, as Councilman Stevens said, in this case, I don't know if they have more properties within the city or not, but are we enabled through either state law or our own ordinance to go beyond this property that we're having a public hearing on right now and affect a license that they have within the city for all other properties? If we have something like that, great, tell us. If not, then that's part of the rental items we talked about. Can we then attach fines to an owner if they have multiple properties? I don't think we can do anything about their, revoking their license. That'll be an inverse condemnation, taking the rest of the properties away from them that they're making money on. So how do we do this? I mean, I think Councilman Stevens has a great idea. What's the path to follow?
Good question.
Microphone.
That's a very good question, because I know we have landlords register with the rental division. What we can do from there and our remedies, I would prefer if I could take that back to the office and report back to council.
I think Councilman Stevens' idea is great. It's just we need the path to follow on it.
Absolutely, and this is part of a larger issue for the city. When somebody is in default, what procedures should the city be taken, and what remedies do we have to make sure that person doesn't
Maybe
benefit from the city?
Have a business license and then have the license for each individual property. And the business license, we attach some bond to it, where if we incur costs from some other property, we can attach that bond that could be for any one of the properties that they own.
That's a wonderful option.
And if I may, Mr. Green, we did discuss that at the Committee of the Whole in regards to
I'm sorry.
making part... No, it's, I know, but the issue did come up, and it's interesting that you brought it up, is that we may consider to have a bond for every rental home in order to cover the cost of this.
Getting a bond like that, though, an individual bond for each single one would be cost prohibitive, but if we have a single entity and get a $10,000 miscellaneous
we may want to...
bond?
Right, in regards to, well, this is something we have to discuss, because Mr. Stevens is right, and when we did this at the time, the properties were still something that we could recover from because there was a lien on the land, and the land was still worth something. Right now, the land is not worth anything, and nobody wants to buy it, and it's probably going to remain vacant for a very long time. So times have changed, and we have to adjust to we're going to have to adapt.
Right.
And as a city council, we're going to try to adapt. And that was the purpose of the Committee of the Whole, to have these discussions, and Judge Biernat had a laundry list of things that we wanted to discuss, and I don't know if it's being too far out of the realm of possibility, is to have every landlord post a bond to a certain amount in order to cover the cost of nuisance abatement. And that will ensure that they're going to take care of that house because they know they're going to lose the bond. And there's a lot of other rationale that we discussed about it. And if you look at the owner of this particular property, MDJ LLC, what does MDJ own? Maybe MDJ owns a few other properties and we can go after them, but also look at the mortgage. There's a $50,000.
They're foreign court.
Well, whatever the maybe corporation they are, they're a limited liability company. They own other properties. They're probably mortgaged to the hilt. And I don't know if we can go after other properties, but Ms. Michaels, can we go after I know we created a situation that we have a lien on the property in regards to the assessment on for administrative expenses, which includes the cost of removing the property, and the administrative expenses included on that. Can we go after MDJ LLC personally, and when I say personally, against the corporation, to collect as well?
Yes, we reserved that right by ordinance.
All right, so there's another possibility, and we have to look and see if the city is pursuing that. So right when this nuisance is abated, and really we're not doing anybody in the neighborhood a favor by, the only reason I consider about tabling is we want this house down. And so that was the concern of mine why I didn't want to table it. And you don't want to let this person off the hook, and neither do any of us, and we don't want to incur that expense. So we're going to do the best we can. We've come up with some pretty good ideas, and hopefully we can invoke them with this last session. Mr. Bach, Mr. Green, you continue?
I think the officer here is you stole the floor.
Sorry. I thought you were done.
No. Let me find my notes. The point being that, as Councilman Stevens said, that we're doing a favor for the building owner. I understand where he's coming from, but the purpose of taking this down is to stop the deterioration of the neighborhood that it's in. And until we get an ordinance that's going to work to the path that we want to follow on this, we still need to do what we can to stabilize neighborhoods. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Bacamino, then Ms. Collegio.
Thank you. I do believe, though, and I agree with Mr. Stevens, though we do have some authority right now. I thought during the meeting, this particular owner now, we can direct the rental department not to issue any new rental licenses. So through the chair to the attorney, can we, as a council then, do we have to make a motion to get the rental department to record this particular landlord and not issue any more rentals? I mean, in the future, they buy 2 more houses, they want to rent them, we can have on record that they have cost us money, they're not allowed any more rental.
Mr. Chair,
Ms. Michaels.
recommendation would be that we provide that notice in writing so it is received by the person.
Exactly, that's what I'm asking now. Should we put it in the minutes? Do we have to make a motion then to instruct the rental department not to issue any more licenses? And then, would that be considered in writing?
If I may, in motion to direct a notice to the landlord.
Right.
That they are in default.
We could make a motion then to abate this with the amendment that there will be in writing something to the rental department not to issue any more licenses to this landlord until further notice.
I'd recommend a separate motion.
A separate motion?
All right.
And Mr. President,
Ms. Collegio.
if I may as well, during the committee of the whole, Judge Biernat did address this issue, and he said that, as Councilman Bacamino said, that while we can't take away a license, we can withhold giving any new license and also renewing any license. So I would want to make sure that that was in that letter as well.
Yeah, and the idea, I believe, is a landlord has to pay all his debts before he gets another rental certificate.
Water bills,
And
water bills as well, taxes. This property here has 815 taxes, 799 taxes, water bill. I mean, everything's out of control as far as collecting fees from people. So, we're going to have to get very aggressive with that.
All debts must be paid before a landlord be issued a rental certificate.
All of
Can
them.
I make that motion now then?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll keep it separate. Let's abate this nuisance.
Okay,
first.
let's abate it first.
Should we
and
amend the agenda to add a...
10A or 10-1?
I mean, it's too late right now. Why don't we wait till after we're done with all of these? And we'll do it at the end, okay?
Okay.
Motion by Sadowski, support by Bacamino. All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Abatement, it's unanimous to abate the nuisance. Item number 11.
Item 11, public hearing, determination of a nuisance at 11124 Packard, dilapidated one-story wood house, basement, garage, porch, and miscellaneous debris, and consideration and adoption of a resolution.
This is a public hearing. Anybody from the public would like to speak?
Members of Council, Henry Christofczyk, longtime resident of the City of Warren. Again, this is in District Number 5. Mr. Bacamino is in charge of that district. Mr. Bacamino, you're being disenfranchised when somebody from another district makes a motion to abate that home in your district. You are responsible for that district, not Sadowski or Green or anybody else. It does not take a roll call to abate a house in a certain district. You people were elected to represent us by districts, not at large.
Anybody else would like to speak on this matter?
Good evening, Council. Joseph Hunt, resident of District 2. I agree with Mr. Christofczyk. Basically, if the property is in District 5, that basically the at-large candidates or the District 5 candidate would make the motion. This is specifically what happens if someone says, I don't want the house abated. But I agree with Mr. Christofczyk that we did have a district election, and this is a property in District 5.
Anybody else like to speak on this matter? Seeing no one, I'll bring it to council for action.
Motion to abate.
Motion by Green.
Support.
Support by Werner. Any discussion?
Discussion.
Mr. Bacamino?
Real quickly, the cost of the abatement, I believe, is paid for by city funds for the entire city.
Yes.
Therefore, I believe it is correct what we're doing. The city charter does allow for the entire council. I mean, I've been referenced twice now for this and through the chair to the city attorney. Am I correct on that? 'Cause I don't want to have to come up every time we abate a house, somebody making that. They have a right to their opinion. However, I believe that, let's explain it now, the cost is distributed throughout the city.
Ms. Michaels?
The housing law requires action by the entire legislative body to abate a
Thank you.
blighted property. Thank you.
And we heard Judge Biernat say we all have a fiduciary relationship on behalf of all the citizens in regards to the city council, and Ms. Michaels just indicated that we have to vote.
Correct.
Okay. Any further discussion from council? Seeing no discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Point of information.
No, Miss
I just want the law.
Public hearing's over with.
Housing law
Can we have
number,
someone?
please.
No point of order. Please sit down. Is the officer here to remove her?
Wait a minute.
Just ask her to sit down if she's not listening.
You're violating the law.
I'm not violating. I'm just asking the officer to have. Ms. Springer, will you sit down? You won't sit down?
I
Will
would
you have
like
her?
the
Will you
law.
escort her,
The
please?
housing law, please. The number, please.
In
You
regards to
quoted
item
the
number,
housing law. I need the number, please.
she'll provide it to you, Ms. Springer. We're in the middle of a meeting right now. Thank you. Item number 12.
Item 12 is also a public hearing, review of special assessment roll number 389 in Ray, abatement of a nuisance at 7605 Rivard for the amount of $2,091.50.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone who would like to address the public in regards to this matter? In regards to special assessment for 7605 Rivard.
Good evening, Council. Tomas Banya, resident of District 2. The fiduciary responsibility may be the entire council, but the determination of a nuisance is solely the responsibility of the district and the at-large representatives. Thank you very much.
Anybody else from the public would like to speak on the review of special assessment?
Christofczyk, District Number 3. On this special assessment, there's a money value on there. My understanding is the rate of interest is 8%. I find that strange that the city has a 3% penalty or a late fee on the water bills. Isn't that 8% a little bit gouging in this time and in this economy when you're only getting 0.5% on your savings and you can borrow money at 4%? Are we that desperate that we're going to gouge these people and double the interest rate? Come on, people.
Anybody else from the public who'd like to speak on this matter? Seeing nobody else from the public, we'll bring it to the council. Oh, is there somebody? I'm sorry. Sorry.
We got to take that rattle away from them.
I'm sorry, but I never thought I would do this in my whole entire life. But I do not like having phone calls or other conversations that are not black and white. The council, Bracamino, or whoever is in that district, has nothing to do with our original ordinance when we were created as a city, and they have not been changed. Everyone up there has a right to vote on an abatement. You have a full right because it's a majority of the council. It's the same as the Senate and also the Congress. And I never thought I would, and I've tried really hard not to come up here and defend you. Don't laugh too much. I don't like you still. But I'm letting you know we have a set of laws that were set by this city in 1957 that have not been changed on that. And I don't want to insult anybody because I like Henry and I like the other guy. But look, black is black and white is white, and these are our rules. You don't like them, change them.
Anybody else from the public who would like to speak on this matter?
Karen Spranger, 7520 Hudson. When there's a debate on law and debate on the statute of the Constitution for the state of Michigan, do a declaratory statement, go back, get your homework right, clarify the fact and issue of the law to make sure you know what you can do and you can't do. Before you take action, find out how to do what you're supposed to be doing under the law. You heard both sides of the issue. We have an attorney here. When there's a question on a law, research it, make a declaratory statement, clarify the law, clarify the issue. We can move forward on doing this properly. I strongly recommend table this, do your homework right, or we will, the people, file with the Attorney General to get an opinion, and you guys are not going to look very proper.
Anybody else from the public? Seeing nobody else from the public, we'll close the public hearing at this time, bring it to the council for action. Any motions?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Green.
Support.
Support by Sadowski. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, we'll question the motion. Well, we're going to, since it deals with money, we're going to question the motion. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Ms. Colegio?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. St. Pierre, yes. Item passes unanimously. Item number
Item
13.
13 is also a public hearing, review of special assessment roll number 390, in Ray, abatement of a nuisance at 21045 Curry for the amount of $2,092.50.
This is a public hearing. We'll open this matter to the public. If anybody would like to discuss the special assessment roll for 2105 Curry, $2,092.50.
Hi, Joe Hunt, District 2 again. I have a question specifically when this goes on the special assessment roll. Are the special assessments still for 10 years? Thank you.
Any further item? People from the public? We'll close the public hearing, bring it to the council for discussion. Motions? Any motion?
Motion approved.
Motion by Green, support by Colegio. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Ms. Colegio.
Council Secretary Stevens, through the chair, did you go to item 13? Did we skip over it?
No, I just read item 13.
Okay, 13. Okay, I just want to make sure. I went to City Hall today once again, and this item is also landlord-owned Kenneth E. Moran, By Right Properties. He's a landlord that owns 145 properties in the city. I believe we also need to look at this one, and once again, we need to, at the end, when we take our motion, add this to the list of landlords that get the letter regarding no renewal of a license, no new license until you pay all your default to the city. You know, I would be very curious to see in the last 4 years how many abatements and nuisances have been landlord-owned. Maybe that's something we need to send a letter through the secretary, through the chair to, you know, City Hall and get from the rental division. It seems to be a pattern, so that's my comment.
Pretty alarming pattern. Any further discussion? Mr. Green?
Yes.
Ms. Colegio?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino? Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Werner?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. St. Pierre, yes. Item passes unanimously. Item number 15.
Item 14 was removed. Item 15 is also a public hearing, review of special assessment roll number 392, in-rate abatement of a nuisance at 8305 Jewett for the amount of $2,535.50.
This is a public hearing. This matter is open to the public. Would anybody like to discuss the matter in regards to the review of special assessment for 8305 Jewett in the amount of $2,535?
I'm very curious, as you say the amount owed, is there a breakage of the figures of what is owed on the property as far as water damage, water bill collection, the whole premise? This figure is just an amount for what?
Is there anybody else from the public want to discuss this matter? We'll close the public hearing. In regard, any motions?
Motion to support with discussion.
Motion by Ms. Colegio. Support by Stevens. Discussion, Ms. Colegio.
Yes, once again, on my journey to City Hall today, this is another landlord-owned property, the third one right in the row here. To answer the question, I believe the fee on this is just the fee for the special abatement that was taken down. But once again, we don't want it to be on the taxpayer's dime. We need to be very aggressive. We need to go back and see how many landlords are in default to the city. We have water bills. We have landlord bills. We need a bill collection department right now. That seems to be what we need. So that's just my comments. But we need a letter also sent that this landlord will not be relicensed or no renewal of licenses or no new license until all his default is paid to the city of Warren, and taxpayers do not have to pay his bill. Thank you.
No, that's item 15.
Right, okay. Any further discussion from City Council? Mr. Stevens, you have the breakdown, and maybe you could indicate where we come up with that $2,535.50.
Yes, Mr. Chair. When the item is abated, the charges are on that, but what is shown and this is available online in the e-packet, and anybody can have access to every bit of information that I have right here in front of me. The demolition bid, which was for $1,443, and then the city administrative fees of $1,092.50 is what gives you that amount right there.
And the city administrative fees are the costs in which it takes in order to abate the nuisance. And we determine that value from the city services that are put into it in addition to tearing the house down.
Mr. President, if I can make one more comment.
Ms.
To make things a little easier, although I don't mind going to City Hall every day before, the council, could they, when we have an item like this, I mean, if the building, division of property maintenance could just let us know if it's a landlord-owned property, it would be a lot easier. But if not, I'll just keep going down and, finding out myself, but it would just be a lot easier. Thanks.
I don't think it would be a bad idea. I have a question for Ms. Michaels. in regards to what we wanted to do, that Mr. Bacamino wanted to make the motion, is now the time to do it, or should we do it after the motion, or make it part of the motion, or what would you recommend?
The letter.
If we're taking separate action, which is to initiate default proceedings, I believe that should be a separate motion.
Okay, all right, in regards to item number 15, there's a motion by Ms. Colegio, support by Mr. Green. Ms. Colegio?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Warner? Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yeah.
Mr. St. Pierre? Yes. Item passes unanimously.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Green?
through the chair to city attorney, should we add an item to the agenda to take action, or should we need an item on the agenda to take action on, so.
And is it too late?
Make a motion to amend the council agenda to add item 15A to direct the rental division to take action against the public hearings 10 through 15, excluding 14?
It's 10, 13, and 15.
Okay. If the city attorney would help me and put the proper language in that we've already talked about, please.
I would amend the agenda to add the motion to initiate default procedures against the landlords who are in default for monetary reasons with the city.
Okay.
Failure to pay taxes and water bills.
That's my motion.
Support.
Motion by Green, support by Bacamino.
To amend the agenda.
Amend the agenda. Is there, so that's the motion. All in favor of amending the agenda? Aye.
15A.
Mr.
In regards to, well, we would be at
Could we make that 15A?
15A.
Correct.
Is there a motion in regards to 15A?
Motion to approve.
As indicated by the city attorney and yourself, correct?
Correct.
The resolution, motion by Green, support by Bacamino. I think we've further discussion. Mr. Green.
Through the chair of the city attorney, as it's been talked about this evening with Councilwoman Colegio and Councilman Stevens and the rest of us, for example, ABC Realty REO 4, LLC or Inc. or whatever. When we're doing this, are we only looking at that entity or any other iteration that Bob Smith may have ownership in? He may have several LLCs. What I don't want to happen is, okay, let's see, I can pay the $5,000 for this being torn down, or I can go to the state and set up a new LLC for $50, and now I have a new entity and I'm clear, and you can't touch me on that. How do we write that?
You don't.
The title is not changed, so it still belongs to the same guy.
So that's what I'm trying to address.
If whether we could pierce that corporate veil,
Right.
so to speak, that I would prefer to research before providing an answer.
Let's do some research on that too, because that's what's going to happen. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
It's probably happening as we speak.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Stevens.
Just so that I'm correct in this, the motion proposed is to initiate default proceedings against the owners listed in item 10, 13, and 15, and to notify them thereof.
Which items were they, 10?
Item 10, 13, and 15.
Yes, 10, 13, and 15. That was on.
Any further discussion?
Mr. President, if we could also, thank you so much. If we could also send a letter to the secretary, through the secretary, if we could send a letter to the rental division, you know, asking them, you know, or the building department or property maintenance to please let council know if an abatement or nuisance or anything comes up that would put a landlord at default to the city so we can take action. It's just a lot easier, although I do enjoy going in and, you know, looking for it, but it would, you know, it would just be very kind. Thank you.
And one other point that if we could, why don't we find out, since we're trying to share information, maybe now's the time to do it, find out if they're in default in taxes or water or anything else, when the item comes up, so we get a good idea and we maybe can get a better grasp of these problems and make that part of the entire package when we're having it in front of us. Would you,
Well, they are.
from every landlord, every person that comes up here for a nuisance,
It's,
Yeah.
even on any other properties, just not that property? Oh, that particular property, I know it's on there. I want it from all their other
Yes.
properties, which they may be in default.
that's a good idea.
Mr. Chair, through the chair of the city attorney again, what we're looking to do in piercing the corporate veil, if it's a pattern of behavior,
Yeah, we'd like
Mr. St. Pierre just said, if they're doing this on all of them, and, okay, I'll pay this one today because it's up to, but if it's a pattern of behavior, that's the trend we're trying to stop. So, what threshold do we have to get to, I guess is what I'm going at. Thank you.
And one more,
Mine will question the motion.
okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Item 16A.
Item 16A, request of the Police Department for approval to purchase 8 2012 Victory Police motorcycles from the sole source provider, Victory Police Motorcycles, at the grand total price of $198,831.52 when factoring in the $3,992.48 discount offered by paying $50,000 as an initial prepayment. Also, a $50,000 down payment to be made to Victory Police Motorcycles on Monday, March 19th, 2012, with the remaining balance of the purchase, $148,831.52, to be financed through a lease agreement with J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, N.A., including 3 annual payments in the approximate amount of $50,000 or $50,974.71, with the first payment due approximately December 21st, 2012, SOL-W-8517.
Is there, it's a long one. Is there any motions?
Motion to approve with discussion?
Motion by Sadowski, support by Warner. Discussion, Mr. Sadowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Auto Subcommittee met earlier today. This was one of the topics that we discussed when we spoke with various members of the police department as well as purchasing. The board will make the recommendation that we go ahead to purchase the motorcycles for the police department. I have now questions for the police department.
Go ahead.
The little different path than we've taken in the past. Before, we've gone ahead and we've leased these vehicles, or we've leased these motorcycles, but we've only leased them for a year, correct?
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Councilman Sadowski. We have used motorcycles since 1955 in the police department. Recently, in the last 3 years, we did lease the motorcycles through Harley-Davidson. Some of the issues that came up as we leased these vehicles, in order for Harley-Davidson to keep the residual value, they took the motorcycle each year and turned it over into a new motorcycle. So let's say we started in 2009 and went through 2012. When 2010 came up, we had to turn into 2009s. So what happened is we had a cost incurred, $800 per motorcycle, which $800 and 8 motorcycles, $6,400. The costs start getting heavy. So not only do they charge us to turn the motorcycles over from one bike to the other, they also charge us for any damages, any burned out clutches or scratches or dings and things of that nature. When I got into this position, I got a bill for $20,000. And there's no way that these guys are doing $20,000 worth of damage on these motorcycles. They take good care of them. They love riding them. They treat them very well. So after some negotiation, I got it down to $5,000. It left a bad taste in my mouth. So what I did is I analyzed what would it cost for us to have Harley-Davidsons over a 5-year period, and what it would cost to purchase these Victory motorcycles over a 5-year period. I can get into all the details. The bottom line is that it cost $160,000 over a 5-year period with all these different costs that were incurred through Harley-Davidson. It cost us $160,000 over a 5-year period. And at the end of it, we don't have any more motorcycles. If we bought motorcycles from Victory, the same comparison, a 5-year plan, we made payments, we kind of a lease-to-own program where we financed it, and we went through a 5-year payment program. It costs us that, what we're talking about right now, the $198,000 over the 5 years. But at the end of it, we have some value. We have 8 motorcycles left. And if you take a look in the Kelly Blue Book, what that motorcycle would be worth is about $10,000 a piece, which is $80,000, which ends up being $125,000 or thereabouts, $120,000 possibly. So you have $160,000 at the end of one 5-year plan that it costs us, and you have $120,000 at the other end of a 5-year plan by buying them. But now there's some additional value. The additional value is we still have the motorcycles. And we drive these motorcycles probably 4,000 to 5,000 miles a year. I think we're going to be driving them now. We drove them less because we had to turn these in before, which took some time out of the year. So now we're going to have motorcycles. I'm forecasting for another 5 to 6, 7 years. I'm hoping that we can have these things over a total of 12 years, and so we will recoup money after that 5-year plan. Not only do we save money, but I think we'll save money continuously over the next 5 years. So that's our plan. That's what we want to do. That's not only in addition to what we feel is a better motorcycle that we've looked into very thoroughly. We looked into the testing by Michigan State Police. I think you all have a packet that talks about all of the different features that they have and the JP Powers tests. And but in addition to that, I called about 10 different departments throughout the country to see how they like these motorcycles. I was unable to find one negative thing. I don't ride a motorcycle. I don't personally care if it's a Harley-Davidson or a Victory. I do care if it's American-made. The only 2 motorcycles that we can drive in the police department are that fit the bill are Victory motorcycles or Harley-Davidsons. We feel, after a study, that the Victory is better for the Warren Police Department. The Warren Police Department feels like we need these motorcycles, not because we had them since 1955, but gas prices going up. We save a lot of gas by these guys driving these motorcycles, maybe 6, maybe 7, maybe 8 months a year. If there's no ice on the road, they can drive them. We use them for traffic enforcement. We use them to patrol schools and parks. We can get these motorcycles back on the paths, the walking paths in the parks. We can come up to people in the schools, drinking behind the schools and things of that nature where cars can't do that. They're very effective in heavy traffic situations. We also use them for answering calls for service, and a lot of times these motorcycles will get to the call faster. And also, during this whole process, we also looked at some studies and the effectiveness of having a traffic division and writing tickets and things of that nature. One of our biggest complaints actually with the police department is traffic related. People driving down the streets, blowing stop signs. It might sound, you might be surprised by that, but it's one of our main complaints. And, you know, this is something that we utilize for those calls for service to assist the citizens. But not only that, we feel that these motorcycles are going to extend our fleet somewhat. I'm able to give the traffic officers vehicles that have high mileage, and when they use them in the winter, they don't put many miles on them. So what happens is I can give them this 60,000 mile car, and they can use this car for several years as they use their motorcycles in the summer. So we think there's value to it. Because there's value to it, we want to use it, and we think this is the best way to do it.
One of the other cost savings with the vehicles when we talked earlier was the simple fact that a representative from Victory will come out to train either someone within our police force or on DPW to change out clutches, to change out brakes, to change oil, where in the past we were required to take that to Harley-Davidson to do. And Harley-Davidson, for example, I think you said to change out a clutch on these would be about $300. Harley-Davidson, we're talking about $1,800.
Yes, that's correct. Part of this whole process when you compare the costs, as we look at the total cost for service for Harley Davidsons over this 5-year period, which is we estimate is $8,500 and $3,500 for the Victory. And part of that cost, one of the main parts of that cost is, you're right, it costs $1,800 a piece for these clutches, and we can't replace them. Victory will send anybody we want to go and be trained how to replace a clutch. I guess it's an easy thing, turn the wrench, and it's a $350 item. They can change oil, change fluids. Whether we did it, we trained someone in DPW to do it, I don't know, but it's definitely an added benefit. We can reduce costs in maintenance.
And we'll be purchasing this directly from the manufacturer, but we do have dealerships in the area to service the warranted items, and the warranty is going to be 5-year wheel-to-wheel, correct?
Yes, 5-year unlimited warranty, unmatched in the industry, definitely unmatched by Harley Davidson. And there is, I believe, the dealerships in Pontiac. The dealership we used for service for the Harleys was in Farmington Hills, so it's about the same distance. I'm hoping, like you had said, that we can maybe do some of our own maintenance. We'll have to figure that out as it goes. I'm sure we'll do that. But yes.
There was something that you had said in your presentation now, but also when we had our subcommittee, that the police force is a stronger and more effective police force by having motorcycle patrols. And it makes it a better police force simply because of the ability to come in and out of traffic during high volume times, and then the various other situations, being able to get into areas where patrol vehicles would not be able to get into the parks, either at night or patrolling school grounds, which I hadn't considered in the past. That's something, and even when we have our festival, being able to get in and out. I guess I kind of liken it to the fact that, our officers not only carry revolvers, but they also carry, there's rifles and shotguns, so there's various tools that they have to make their job better. This is another one. And most people, I don't think, really are aware of that in the city of Warren, or haven't really considered, but our population doubles during the daytime. So the amount of traffic that flows during business hours into the city, and the increase in traffic, and having the motorcycles available to be able to monitor this during better weather, I can now see the importance, and also the added benefit that you talked about with better gas mileage. And I was surprised when you also said that a lot of our officers that do drive these will drive them during the winter time because they prefer to be in the open air. So
yeah, the cold doesn't affect them. We just can't have ice on the road. But they want to drive them.
God bless them. I don't like getting in a cold car. That's for the most part it covers the questions that I had. I'll turn this over now for other questions to council. Thank you.
Mr. Bacamino.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Sadowski is exactly right. The point I brought up earlier, and I did talk to Deputy Galasso as well, and Commissioner Green, Deputy Commissioner Galasso and Commissioner Green on the phone about the school issues. I've talked to several superintendents, and their main time, and the residents that live near schools, the main time the problems is at dismissal. And it was mentioned that the liaison officers wouldn't be appropriate. They're in the building trying to build relationships with students, and they use squad cars, but the motorcycle is more accessible to those areas, less visible, and therefore students driving by with loud music see a squad car, they shut it down until they pass it and they turn it back on, still disturbing the neighbors. However, the motorcycle can be up within easements or on the curb or on the sidewalk, I know.
Yeah, they can turn on a dime.
Turn on a dime, the radius, right. So that would, again, detour. Some of the superintendents have told me that, well, what can we do about it? And this would be something, especially during the summer hours, Well,
the commissioner and the deputy commissioner have a definite plan for some of the schools that we've had some issues with.
And the motorcycles are a large part of that.
Part of that plan is the motorcycles. And, we hope we get these going in time, but that's definitely part of the plan.
Any residents watching, I know that live near the schools, please be aware that there is a plan in action, and the motorcycles are part of it, and that's one reason why, not to mention the cost savings, that I would be approving this. Thank you.
Anybody? Mr. Warner?
Thank you, Mr. St. Pierre. Mr. President. Captain, talking with, yesterday with Commissioner Green, in the past we have not been able to utilize drug forfeiture money for the price of the motorcycles due to the fact that we were leasing. Now that we are going to be buying, would we be able to utilize drug forfeiture monies in the future?
Well, you know, we are buying, but we're leasing in effect. There's financing involved here. There's $50,000 coming out of our forfeiture fund that we have budgeted monies in this budget, forfeiture monies, and I believe that using this $50,000, we're still going to have enough monies left for different other items we're going to buy. We're still going to buy some playing cars. We need to buy ammunition, things of that nature. But the problem is, several years down the road, next year or the following year, we never know how much drug forfeiture money we're going to have. And because this is a contract we're entering into to buy these things, we can't make a promise. Now, do we want to use drug forfeiture money? Absolutely. Will we use drug forfeiture money if it's there? Absolutely. But that's why this is structured this way. If you look at what we've done with the police department over the last couple of years, 2 budgets ago we used half our drug forfeiture money and half general funds for cars. Last year we used all our money for cars. We're using all our money for cars this year, and we're using all our money for Detective Bureau cars, we're using all our money for ammunition. But when you get to a guy like me who's in charge of the finances, you get a little nervous that all the money's gone and we don't have enough money for cars the following year. So you have to take some precautions, and what we did is we talked with the controller, Mr. Maljic, and the budget director, Mr. Simone, and we talked about it. We like to structure it like this, but our intention is if we have the money, we'll pay for it with drug forfeiture. So that's the intention.
Now, regarding the amount of vehicles, we've always had 8 in the motorcycle fleet, correct?
Well, we did have 10 at one point. We've had 8 for several years, but we think that 8's a good number for us.
Is it in correlation with the amount of officers on patrol, or how do we determine? Because like you were saying with the cost savings with gas, with fuel costs and maintenance costs, would it be feasible to bump that number from 8 to 10 in the future?
It's possible, but we have to look at personnel allocation, and we not only use these motorcycles to respond to calls for service, but let's face it, the primary calls for service guys are the patrol cars with the cages in the back, so we have to balance that number. You know, we're a big police department, so we think 8's a good number for us. Could we use 10? Maybe. Right now, we think 8's good.
Okay.
You know.
One thing wasn't able to talk with the representative, but with technology being the way that it is, I mean, obviously on patrol cars you have the dashboard cam to protect the officer against a number of things. Due to the fact that technology has advanced, is there anything in the works of a similar type of apparatus to put on motorcycles?
There absolutely is. We have a camera system right now that's a few years old, and we've been able to keep it running pretty well. We've actually gotten parts from cameras and microphones from other departments that have upgraded their system. We found a way to keep our system going, and it's my plan to keep it going for at least a few more years. And because of that, we're going to take some of these extra parts that we're getting from different departments around the area that are giving us these cameras and mics and things of that nature, and we're going to put them on the motorcycles. We just have to be able to retrofit them. That's part of the plan, though, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Anybody else from the council?
Mr. President?
Ms. Clegio?
If I could. Good evening. A question I have, you know, when tickets are written through the police department, what percentage goes towards the court? I know the court recoups part of the cost, am I correct?
I do not know.
Okay, you're not sure. Okay, I think people think it all just goes to the police or back to the fund, but it doesn't, correct? The motorcycles, I called to talk about this item today because it's a lot of money and we're in hard budget times and everything, but I've also received numerous calls from residents that have great concern with the parks. They're trying, they're finding needles, graffiti, a lot of things that never should be in a place where children are at, and when you say these motorcycles can actually get on the walkway and actually thoroughly patrol a park where a car can just turn around in the driveway and, kind of look and go. So, and I also know that you guys are going to have a plan to aggressively go after some certain areas coming up soon, and I look forward to that, to that as well. The kids coming out of the schools, these vehicles will be used for that too. Now, the motorcycles don't patrol at night, correct?
Well,
Could they be used at night in the parks?
They can be used at night in the parks, and we are going to, depending on how the, it's up to the deputy commissioner on how he wants to allocate that resource, but
okay.
I know he's thinking about a certain number working at night, going into the parks, or when the schools close down, like I said before, going into the, in a little cubby hole where kids are hanging out, or, let's face it, some of these parks, the bathrooms are way back far. The car can't get back. They're going to get stuck in the mud and things of that nature. And as soon as the lights go down, you're right. People are doing whatever they're doing. You're finding needles, like we're finding needles, or people are finding needles. So it's absolutely part of the plan. We think that's why it's important to have these. It's a good tool for us.
So it's a part of safety that people, I know I wasn't thinking that way until I called. And, it was kind of explained to me. Sometimes your motorcycles can come up on people a little quicker, like you were talking behind the schools. You don't notice them as quickly, and
Right.
They can catch some of these activities going on. So, and the number 8, you used to have 10, but now you're going down to 8, and you won't have to pay. Like you said, they'll drive them more because they won't be afraid of banging and dinging them. And obviously, if the last people are going to charge you that much, just to fix it when you turn it back in, you can't be doing that. So, but aggressively patrol the parks. That's what we're hearing. The neighborhood meeting we were at, it was parks.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
and the school, and the speeding out of the schools, speeding down the schools. Ford Road. Look at Ford Road. Thank you.
Yes.
Anybody else?
Mr.
Stevens?
Thank you. Captain, thank you for coming. We had a talk this afternoon also about the motorcycles.
Yes, sir.
I have a motorcycle in my garage right now. I'm, in fact, buying a new one tomorrow, picking it up at 3:30.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Is it a victory?
And actually, it's better. But I have to tell you, of everything that was said between the commissioner, the deputy commissioner, and yourself, what you reminded me of changed my mind on my position. Because initially, when I woke up this morning, I was against this for monetary reasons. I thought it was a lot of money, but I understand the use and how they can be put to use and the tactics and different things. But when I woke up this morning, I thought, you know what, that's too much money to buy 8 motorcycles for 4 months, 5 months out of the year, whatever it happens to be, depending upon, weather. But what you reminded me of was the last couple times that automobiles were purchased, we used drug forfeiture money completely to make those purchases.
We do, and
Yes.
coming up, we'll be using drug forfeiture money for plane cars, and we use it for ammunition. We use it for a lot of things, actually.
Right. So that's what swayed me, and that's what changed my mind on this, was the fact that the department has been very prudent in spending its money.
Thank you.
And I have to give a lot of that credit to you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So I just wanted to say that also the Deputy Commissioner's challenge is on, and I will be voting for this. Oh, and another thing, I mentioned to the Commissioner that we now have a place to put those M4s. So, all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And it's the only motorcycle out of all of these that goes in reverse.
Yeah.
It may help us someday in some situation. In regards to, there's no further discussion, we'll question the motion. Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Mr. Colegio?
Yes.
Mr. St. Pierre, yes. Item passes. Item 15B, or 16B.
Item 16B, consideration and adoption of a resolution revising the Warren Police Department Records Division fees.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Green, support by Bacamino. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Stevens.
While we have the captain here, I would like to ask him a question. Reference the lost weapon registration. They want to raise that from $1 to $5. What is that fee for?
Losing your gun registration?
Yes.
So we'll give them a copy of it for $5. They're they lost their registration. If they lose
All right,
it,
but
we'll give them a copy of it.
it's not if they lose the gun, they have...
No,
Okay.
absolutely not, sir.
Excellent. Thank
Yes.
you.
Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Item C.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item C, request of the fire department for approval to purchase one 2012 GMC HD 2500 4x4 regular cab pickup truck from Red Home and Pontiac GMC in the amount of $29,917. Payment to be made within 10 days of delivery, STA-W-8545.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Green.
Support.
Support by Warner. Any discussion? Question the motion. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Ms. Colegio?
Yes.
Ms. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. St. Pierre, yes. Item passes 16D.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Item D, consideration and adoption of a resolution approving bid and award of contract, City Project P-12-547, 2012 pavement repairs with Mattioli Cement Company, LLC, in the amount not to exceed $630,583.80, and Zuniga Cement Construction Incorporated, in the amount not to exceed $639,520, and authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute said contracts. Motion to approve.
Support. Motion by Stevens, support by Green. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Stevens?
if I may, through the chair, to the city engineer.
I see you're in the audience tonight.
Good evening, council members. Dana Dordeski, acting city engineer.
Thank you. Mr. Dordeski, we also had a conversation on this. I was a little confused on this, and somebody that picked up this packet or looked at the packet may also be confused in that these two amounts, you're actually making the project, or the project is actually going to be bigger. Is that correct?
Correct. There is no quantities that are being reduced from the quantities that the contractors bid on. It's a multiple contractor award.
So rather than 12,000 yards of concrete, it's going to be about 24,000 yards of concrete.
That is correct. We're asking for approval of the contract to two contractors, separate contractors, so that the locations can be repaired in a quicker manner, because having two contractors, obviously they can perform the required work in a less amount of time and utilize best weather, and that's the purpose of it, of doing a multiple contractor award.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for clearing that up for me today, too. So.
Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Just real quickly.
Mr. Bacamino?
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Dordeski. Is it true that one of the contractors is a Warren-based company?
That is correct. One of the contractors, it's the second lower bidder, actually has his business, or its business, right here in City of Warren.
Because I do like to, I noticed that earlier, and I thought, this is Zuniga, right? Zuniga Cement?
That is correct. They've
Okay.
had
And
that
it's nice
business.
to, we bought the motorcycles by American, and it's also nice to use Warren businesses whenever they are applicable. In this case, certainly applies. So thank you very much for going out and looking at all that and awarding this also, or recommending the recommendation to a local company as well. Appreciate it, and I know they'll both get the job done. They're very good companies. It's nice to have somebody local, though, especially in those emergency situations with their equipment at a moment's notice.
That is correct. They're very readily available, and that's probably a benefit to resident and to the contract itself.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Ms. Colegio?
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
If I could just ask you a couple questions. I was looking through the bid the bid sheets. On page 1, just you go down and it says standard cover for manhole or catch basin, and the lowest bidder of the whole, that was awarded the lowest bid was $6,570, and the second bidder is $900. You go down a little farther and it says MDOT drum, first bidder $5,625, second bidder $250. Up here, remove catch basin, first bidder $34,650, second bidder $21,000. Can you explain, the large variables in the bidding, when it comes in? Why would there be such a large spread between, both contractors?
The differences between how the contractors bid depends on many variables. In this particular instance, some of the items, for example, contractor can own equipment or materials. That's why it doesn't cost them that much. That is why you might see a difference. One contractor may charge a penny or nothing. The other might charge the full cost of anticipated rental or purchase of that item. So there could be a lot of variables that are put together into a project and a bid that's being proposed by the contractor.
Okay, as well, when you see each job on here, I think like on the second page it says install Class A sod on 3-inch thick topsoil. Contractor 1, $1,800. Contractor 2, $625. Excavate unsuitable subgrade material. First contractor $3,400. Second contractor $50. I mean that's a huge variable. When you're picking two contractors, does it go does it go by job, or do they just do, large jobs? Or does it, do you pick the lowest bidder for certain jobs when you go with two contractors, or, how does that work?
We do not look at the individual items because we have to take a look at the entire scope of the project. The scope of this particular project involves repairs of multiple locations. There could be, each of the contractors will probably get about between 250 and 300 locations, and they all will be different. We do have a fairly good approximation or anticipation of what might be, but when you actually go to that location, because some of them were evaluated many years back, the conditions could be different. So it's the best guess estimate work in terms of the quantities, and obviously a lot of times things change in construction, so we don't know. Typically, like for restoration items, one contractor may roll in some of the restoration costs and charge more for the concrete to account for this. That's why you might see a price for restoration very, very low. The other contractor may choose to have a higher or lower concrete price or other associated items and then bid higher prices for restoration, but it varies, it's very independent, and we can't really look at individual. We have to look at the entire project.
Okay, and where are these projects taking place?
Citywide.
I mean, there aren't any specific, how many, do you know approximately how many projects they'll be working on, or?
Each contractor will have approximately between 250 and 300 locations citywide. Being that it's two contractors, we'll try to confine one contractor to one side of town and the other to the other side of town. That way, basically, there will be less traveling time. The repairs will be done quicker, and there's cost savings to the city, time savings to the city, cost savings to the contractor, and there won't be too much congestion between the location repairs and contractors tripping over each other.
Right. I just wanted to make sure that when you see, I also like Warren companies. I do. I believe that we should, practice economic patriotism at home. I believe that. My one concern is that when you see a bidder come in way lower on an item from $50 to $3,000, or $6,000 to $900, I just want to make sure, like in the past, we get a lot of change orders, right? Are you putting anything in place where something's not going to come back through either of these, winners of the bids for change orders to council?
Well, there shouldn't be, and the quantities that you're looking at two things. You're looking at quantities and you're looking at associated or resulting amounts. So there is a potential that if we anticipate certain amount of restoration, we may not even require that much restoration. The same thing with other items. This is our guess based on the records that we have for repairs. Those will probably change and they will vary. We will control the cost of the project because we will monitor what is being marked for removals, and so that we'll know where to stop. We have a potential to stop at a certain amount of money.
Okay,
without exceeding the amount, correct.
Okay, so a company that's bidding like $50 isn't going to come back and say, oh, we had to spend so much more for our sod, or the one that's, $15,000 cheaper on a certain item, it's not going to make something go over on a bid spec. I'm new. I'm just trying to figure everything out. Bear with me. As well as I know last year we had some large change orders that came through council. They were huge. What fund is this coming out of?
This is coming from the 2011 local road repairs millage.
So this is coming from the millage?
That is correct.
Okay. And is it local roads that you're working on?
That is correct. It's going to be a citywide.
Okay, but it's not any main roads. These are local neighbor, do you have a listing of roads that council can look at?
Correct. We do have that database, and those locations will be, the list will be finalized upon approval of the award, contract award. But yes, they're in our database. They have been created. A lot of them were evaluated many years back. A lot of them are current. We've been continuously adding locations, and we try to go by priority. We also recognize that the older locations have to be repaired as well, but we have to consider a lot of variables when we put that list together.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I don't want to see change orders come back if we can help it. It seems kind of like a very loose way to work on a bid, but obviously, concrete isn't something I work with, but I don't know. It seems like, if you have specific projects, you would know more specifically exactly what you're going to need when we're talking, this type amount of money. It's a huge amount of money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Warner? Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Dordowski, I just want to clarify, over the past 4 years, I had often heard about this too, with change orders and things of that nature, but regarding all these contracts with these two particular contractors, they do outstanding work. They have an excellent reputation, and they have not raised their rates for the city in numerous years. Now, change orders cannot be directly linked just because they are the lowest bidders. It depends on the scope of the work when they get down to dig the hole or to fill the hole. So whether you're a bidder at $630,000 or a bidder at $848,000, it's the same scope of work. But when the work is after it's exhausted and there are other things that suddenly pop up, those explain the change orders. It's not directly correlated to the lowest bidder. So I just want to say that I'm glad that these two companies are working. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Stevens.
Thank you. Just for councils, and I guess I should have actually prefaced this whole thing, is I spoke with Ms. Dordowski today. She wants to provide council and the citizens with an update as far as the progress that's being done and what's going to be done. She's going to provide you with maps with a status of each road within your district, so you know what the status is. And that'll be, we added that to the rental ordinance committee of the whole for the 26th of March, and she'll present that information to you then and provide that those supplies to you.
So if I understand it, City Council has no say-so in the database and the priority of fixing the roads?
The complaints have been generated. They usually come in from
That was a
residents.
yes or no. So City Council has no authority in regards to the, I just want everyone to know that we're not setting this thing up. It's through your department and it's based on complaints, correct?
For the patch repairs or concrete section repairs, correct. We're utilizing existing database to repair those. We're also currently ongoing and compiling a list for future years for repairs.
All right, and can this database be put on the city website? Dashboard?
I would think so, but Mr. Dordowski, could you take it a step farther in how you broke it down as far as the repairs to try to make it equal across the city? Could you address that?
Correct. We're trying to be fair in many aspects and across the board for everyone. And obviously, we're looking into several reasons or several variables. We're looking into severity of the deterioration, the age of a complaint, the size of a complaint. We're not repairing locations that are of lower severity. We're prioritizing the ones that could potentially be hazardous. They have been on a list for a long period of time. They could be problematic. They have to be repaired immediately. The wonderful thing is having this larger amount of money that we have had in the past several years allows us to repair more locations, but they are patch repairs. They're not intended to do entire street repairs. So we have been looking, when we put the program together, we actually look citywide. So we look at locations that have been called in by residents and qualify using our standard criteria, evaluation criteria, as explained before. We also look at the layout, whether it's north and south, and we also took consideration into districts. So everybody gets...
Well, I just didn't want any of these elder statesmen getting a jump on the new guy in the council. So I just wanted to make it clear that you're doing this on a broad view rather than nobody has any political influence. It's done through your department.
That is correct.
All right, thank you. Glad we put that on the record. Any further discussions? If not, Mr. Stevens. No, we better vote on it.
Oh, yes.
It's only a few dollars. Mr. Stevens, Mr. Green?
Yes.
Okay, I know there's been a little time lapse here. Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Werner?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Ms. Collegio?
Yes.
Mr. St. Pierre, item passes. Thank you. Well, you
Thank
may
you,
want to
Council.
stick around. There's another big one here.
Item 16E, consideration and adoption of a resolution approving bid and award of contract, City Project W-12-542, 2012 Water Division Concrete Manhole and Sod Repairs with Zuniga Cement Construction Incorporated in the amount not to exceed $545,470 and authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute said contract.
Motion approved.
Support.
Motion by Stevens, support by Bacamino. Discussion.
Green. Motion by Green, I think.
I'm sorry. I mixed it up twice. I apologize. Mr. Green, support by Bacamino. Discussion.
Mr. President, just a
Ms.
couple of quick
Collegio.
questions.
right.
Once again, looking at the bid specs, on page 1, standard frame for gate well, manhole and catch basin, Zuniga Cement, $3,000, the next person, $750. Up here, remove and replace 6-inch concrete pavement using MDOT, $225,000 to $176. There's large variables once again, okay, and this is just one company that's getting the bid, correct?
There is only one company, correct?
Okay, can you explain the variable with the standard frame for gate well, manhole, or catch basin, 3,000? Is this once again where it's a company that has their strong points in one area and they, compensate in another? Is that how the bid spec comes out?
Most of the contractors put their bid together based on how much it would cost them to perform entire project, not just one individual item. So there is a lot of variables. It's their cost. There may be travel, profit and overhead. Some contractors might have a lower overhead than the others, and they put it all together and divided based on the quantities and items that are being proposed. They're bidding on the same items each bidder has. There is no deviation in the quantities of the items. And we have no control of what their prices are. They decided themselves.
All right, thank you. That was my question. Thanks.
Any further discussion? Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Ms. Collegio?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Werner?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. St. Pierre, yes. Item F.
Item F, consideration and adoption of a resolution approving bid and award of contract, City Project TV-12-551, 2012 annual sewer cleaning and televising with Metro Environmental Services Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $262,765 and authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute said contract.
Motion to approve with
Motion by
discussion.
Werner. Any support?
Support.
Support by
Sadowski.
Sadowski. Discussion, Mr. Werner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Odeski, when I talked to you about this, you appraised me of this item months ago that we were going to be getting this. Once we receive this camera system, we are going to start scoping the entire city.
A little bit at a time, yes.
It's
not
all at once.
Correct. The quantities, this amount will not cover entire city. That's intended for as needed services throughout the year. Hopefully we can expand this program and make it on an annual basis, which we have this program, the same program, but on a much smaller scale for the past few years. This is a little bit larger than the last time what we had. I think last time we had about $80,000 or I'm sorry, 65, around 65 if I'm not mistaken. So this would allow us to do more, and there is a lot of situations where Water Division comes across a situation where they need to determine what the nature of the problem, and we have to utilize those services. They do have some capabilities, but not necessarily to televise larger and deeper sewers, so that would assist us tremendously, in addition to as needed maintenance.
No, we are going to be utilizing this along with the road millage. Once we start looking for things and we start digging it up, then we're going to put the cameras in place here to see if there's any further damage while we have literally the hole in the road dug.
Correct. We would like to televise the streets that we are going to be removing and replacing, that is so that we can check the pipes. There's an indication that there could be any failures. We would correct those prior to putting the pavement in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Ms. Colegio.
Yes. Once again, looking at the bid sheet, the question that comes to mind is, if we would have taken the lowest two bidders instead of just one, because it is on an uncalled basis, right? So when you need them, you call them in, right? Looking at the bid specs, down here there's wide variables once again. Then my thought would be, if you would pick two companies, depending on what the problem was, I think, the department probably could have saved a lot of money. Down here, heavy cleaning 8-inch sanitary sewer mains. The low bidder, $11,440. The next bidder, $2,600. Right here, cleaning 8-inch sanitary sewer mains, $3,000 to $700. $1,800 to $600, $2,000 to $600. $30,000 to $12,000. Huge differences. So if you would have bid out with two companies, since it's an on-call basis, if you bid on and you took two lower companies, don't you have a better chance of saving the city money depending on what you needed cleaned out? That's just a thought I had.
Not necessarily, and in this particular contract, there's two components to it. There is a cleaning of a sewer and then heavy cleaning. If you can't clean it the first time because the sewer might be plugged or obstructed, you have to do heavy cleaning. And if you noticed, the low bidder actually structure has prices by doing a light or lower cost on regular cleaning and a little bit higher on a heavy cleaning. Typically they go hand in hand. The second one, structure has bid differently. He asked for more money up front for light cleaning and a very little for the heavy cleaning. Could that balance? More than likely, we have to look at the overall project. We can't look at the individual and pick and choose which are more favorable, because the contractor is asked to perform a project, not just that one item out of whatever.
So the contractor, when they get out there, that's when they find out if it's a light cleaning or a heavy cleaner. You do not know that, but the contractor knows that when they get there, correct?
We do not. We anticipate most favorable conditions, obviously, but being that each location is different, there could be a lot of issues, maybe roots, maybe a section of pipe that collapsed. We don't know until we get there. And we usually have an inspector on site who determines whether the heavy cleaning or the other options are necessary. So that's why it's not really... we have to look at the overall
So
project.
that explains it. No, you explained it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Mr. Werner?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Ms. Colegio?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Mr. St. Pierre, yes. Item passes. Item G.
Thank you.
Item 16G, tabulation of bids and recommendation, in-ray printing and processing of utility bills for the Water Division, and consideration and adoption of a resolution accepting the lowest bid submitted by DVDAT for a 2-year period in the estimated annual amount of $78,677.48 and a 2-year estimated total in an amount not to exceed $157,354.96.
Any motions?
Motion to approve with discussion?
Motion by Sadowski, support by Stevens. Discussion, Mr. Sadowski.
I think Mr. Polakowski, Rob, you're here for this item? The question that I had during Mr. Polakowski's presentation, he indicated that we could receive our water bills electronically.
That's correct.
Does that mean then we will not receive a bill mailed to the house then?
He said that you can actually get that via email. I don't know much about the program, but that's what he told me earlier today.
Okay, because I guess in my case, I would prefer, not to receive a paper bill. I know in the past it's been difficult in order for them to remove bills and not have them mailed to the house. I know some people who are snowbirds, they'll pay for their bills or they'll do shut-offs, but yet they still receive a bill coming to the house.
Right.
So that was my question, but at this time you don't know if the paper bill will stop.
Yeah, DivDat has a very sophisticated way of processing, matching addresses and eliminating addresses. So I believe the technology is there that you would not get one, but I'll double check with him on that.
Thank you. I'm all set.
Anyone else?
Mr. President, real
Ms.
quickly,
Colegio.
to Mr. Mauzek, good evening once again. I know when I was in your office, I also brought up the question once again of not doing monthly billing, and in the future going to either quarterly or bi-monthly, just for a cost-cutting, savings. That's just something that would be good for us to look into once Mr. Polakowski gets caught up with things over there. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Mr. Sadowski.
Ms. Colegio, one of the reasons why we went from quarterly to monthly was the large number of senior citizens that we have in the way that they do the budgeting of their bills. It was a lot easier for them to budget on a monthly basis, and that's why we did it. And being the 5th largest population of senior citizens in the war in the state of, well, not the state of Michigan, in the country, that decision was really driven by their interest in having that. So that's.
Did it used to be quarterly, or?
It used to be quarterly. We did it, and that was probably, I don't know if it was 16 years ago,
Yeah.
but we
I do remember that.
yeah.
But even if we went bi-monthly, that wouldn't be such a huge jump, but it would still save $78,000 every 2 years,
Right.
We're just in scary budget times, but that's a very good point. It's a good point for our seniors. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. Anybody else? We'll question the motion. Mr. Sadowski.
Yes.
Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Werner.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino.
Yes.
Ms. Colegio.
Yes.
Mr. St. Pierre, yes. Item passes. Item H.
Item 16H, request of the Property Maintenance Division for approval of a 1-year extension of the split award of bid ITB-W-8349 lawn maintenance and weed mowing services to the lowest bidder, JR Services Group, LLC, and Green Meadows Landscape, Incorporated, at the prices summarized in the bid tabulation sheet, annual grand total not to exceed $223,340.44. So moved.
Motion by Stevens, support by Green. Got it right that time. Any discussion?
Quick comment.
Mr. Sadowski.
I just want to let the residents of Warren know that JR Services, who would be taking over the north and south mowing of these abandoned properties, they were the contractor last year. As a matter of fact, they ended up taking over the rest of the city due to problems with one of the other contractors. I know when I called on a property, the property was cut within a couple of days. They did a fantastic job. A couple of hours. Yeah, and a great company. I'm glad to see that they're back. I'm glad to see that they're the company that received the lowest bid on it. And I know the residents will get good service because of this. So well worth the money. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Stevens.
Just to add to that too, I believe they got their start in Warren because there was a contractor that basically walked off and just wasn't going to do the work anymore, and we were in a pinch, and couldn't afford it because they had underbid it. And in a pinch, we got a hold of JR Services, I guess, and I'm not sure who did that, but and they came to the rescue. So they've helped us out quite a bit. Thank you.
And it is quite a job. Yeah, it is. Especially if the weather is just right, a lot of grass growing.
Just a quick point too.
Mr. Bachman.
I know it came up about charitable services that certain companies in Warren do. And I know being on the Veterans Memorial Committee, JR Services maintains that for no cost to the city as well. They'll pull out dead shrubs, put in new shrubs, pull the weeds every spring, maintain it. We whack that for our veterans at no cost. That's, again, some of the things that we like to see when companies do business with Warren and move to Warren is charitable contributions. So, thank you.
Seeing no further discussion, Mr. Stevens.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski.
Yes.
Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Ms. Colegio.
Yes.
Bachamino.
Yes.
Mr. St. Pierre. Item passes. Aye.
Item 16I, consideration and adoption of a resolution adopting the amendments to the 2011-2012 Housing and Community Development Action Plan, CDBG, and home budgets.
Is there a motion to move this $1 one way or the other? Support. A motion by Bachamino, support by Mr. Green. My only comment is an awful lot of man hours went in to move for $1 one way or the other, but that's our federal funds at work. Any discussion? Mr. Bachamino?
Yes.
Mr. Green? Yes. Ms. Colegio?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. St. Pierre? Yes. Next.
Item 16J, consideration and adoption of a resolution authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute the necessary documents to sell and convey to Candace Griffin for the lower of the sum of $76,000 or the amount of the appraisal obtained by her mortgage company, but no lower than the minimum price of $71,000 plus closing costs. The property described as 11114 May, parcel ID number 13-22-402-012, NSP program.
Is there any motion to accept this?
So moved.
Motion by Green.
Support.
Support by Sadowski. Is there any discussion? I just want to bring up, is there anyone here from the administration in regards to this? Ms. Furlong, I just think it should be noted that something's sold, okay? And it's not a bad price. Maybe you could, so people that are watching know that we actually sold the property, at least hope to, and we have some parameters in line to accept the offer, and maybe tell us where this property is located and how much it's sold for.
Okay, the property is sold for $76,000. Find my paperwork here. It is in section 22, which is like, it's like back behind Home Depot, Hoover 11 area. And
And we have a catch-all provision in case the appraisal comes in a little bit lower, that it can go no lower than 71,000. Is that correct?
That is correct, and that only happened once, and the buyer has no control over the appraiser. As you all know, the bank does the appraisal, her mortgage company, and we can't influence them, she can't influence them. And so that did happen once, and so we like to put that proviso in there so we don't have to come back to council. And I was trying to look for the assessing department's true cash value of this property, because this is one case where we're actually selling it for more than the assessing department's value.
I know, that's why I thought we should note that. And when we sell these properties, as a general rule, are these people are going to use it as their home rather than a rental?
That's a requirement.
Okay, good.
It must be their principal place of residence.
I just wanted to put on the record that we
Yes.
make that effort.
Yes,
Great.
they have to be income eligible, and it must be, but they're working people because they have to be able to get a mortgage, and it is their principal place of residence.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Motion by Green, support by Sadowski. Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Ms. Collegio?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. St. Pierre, yes. Item passes. Item K.
Item 16K, consideration and adoption of a resolution authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute the necessary documents to sell and convey to Roberta Wilson for the sum of $49,000 plus closing costs the property described as 21075 Marie, parcel ID number 13-27-333-022, home program.
Is there any motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Warner. Support by Mr. Bacamino. Yeah, this is in District 3, and I think the $49,000 price is a great price for everybody concerned as well. Is that right, Ms. Furlong?
That is a good price. It's a good price for both the buyer and for the city.
That's right, and I drove by the area, and I do have a few addresses, but the city inspector left. I'll talk to him later about that. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Ms. Collegio?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. St. Pierre, yes. Item L.
Item 16L, consideration and adoption of a resolution to authorize acquisition of the west 65 feet of the east 130 feet of Lot 39, Liberty Acres subdivision, commonly known as 13682 Bernice, parcel ID number 13-24-151-004, and authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute a purchase agreement to purchase said property for $41,580 plus prorated taxes and buyer's closing costs not to exceed $5,000. Also, to authorize the controller's office to issue a check payable to the closing title company in the amount not to exceed $41,580 plus prorated taxes not to exceed $4,000 plus any buyer's closing costs not to exceed $1,000, NSP 1 rehab resale project.
Is there a motion
to approve?
Motion by Stevens. Support by Green. Any discussion? Mr. Green, you want just maybe note where we're purchasing this
I
property?
just looked at it, south of 696, east of Shaner on Bernice. House looks fairly good.
Yes, it's a ranch, isn't it?
Yeah.
And a brick ranch. So we're getting a good deal, and hopefully we can turn this around. Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino?
Yes.
Ms. Collegio?
Yes.
Mr. St. Pierre, yes. Item 17A.
Item 17A, consideration of an ordinance amending Chapter 21, Article 3, Section 21-46 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Warren relating to noxious weeds and rubbish. First reading.
Is there a motion to adopt this reading?
Motion.
Motion by Ms. Collegio. Any support? Support. Mr. Bacamino, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Item B.
Item 17B, which was previously 4I, tabulation of bids and recommendation in rate, plant bed maintenance for the Parks and Recreation Department, and consideration and adoption of a resolution accepting the lowest bid submitted by Frank's Landscaping and Interlocking Brick in an amount not to exceed $12,920 with the option to renew for one additional year at the same terms and conditions, ITB-W-8515.
Motion to support with discussion?
Motion by Ms. Coligio, discussion, support by Mr. Bacamino.
Discussion.
Discussion, Ms. Coligio.
Yeah, good evening, Henry Bowman.
Good evening, Henry Bowman, Parks and Recreation Director.
Love your tie.
Thank you.
Just a couple of really quick questions for you, and I know it might sound silly to you, but on the bid thing here, when I'm reading it, it's discussing mulch, right?
Yes.
Are we buying mulch from this vendor, or
That's
is this city mulch?
included in the price.
Okay, I know residents can go to our sanitation yard or the DPW yard and get free mulch through the summer. The city doesn't, don't we have our own mulch?
That is not the quantity that we would use for all of our projects, number one, and then that mulch that's there, it hasn't been treated. It's all that wood chips and everything is just being, it's just whatever's been chipped up. So most of the stuff, most of the stuff that comes out goes to, we take most of our stuff to J.H. Hart up on Mound Road, where they process it and season it and turn it over and get it to where it's working its good stuff.
Okay. Okay, so they take it, process it, and then some of that comes back and we use that.
I don't know where this company gets their mulch from. But
Okay,
it
but
was
at
not
the DPW yard, so you're saying we never have enough at the
No, we-
DPW yard to do our city projects?
No, we wouldn't have enough.
Okay, the other question I had, and really a concern I had regarding this item here, I know last year, is this the same company that worked on this last year?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yes, it
and can we give a little instruction this year as far as perennial plants over by, the butterfly gardens over by City Hall, and, the milkweed that, Taylor brought in and we had to replace a lot of it, and can we just make sure that they don't pull out perennials in the flower
that
gardens?
wasn't the company that did that anyway.
That wasn't this company, that was somebody
else.
else. No, not where it was, just in general maintenance, I've heard of a couple times that they're pulling out perennials.
Yeah,
Okay.
this company, they haven't pulled out any perennials.
Okay.
Very good gardening company.
Right.
They do have, everybody has their own opinions on how certain plants are to be maintained, but we do know that whenever they're working with any of our garden stuff that we do with the Warren Garden Club or the Butterfly Garden, we know that we're going to have a one-on-one meeting with them beforehand.
Okay,
before they
great.
do
And as
anything.
far as the ornamental tree trimming, I mean, we have a whole, we have a forestry division, right? Is there a reason why this company comes in and does our ornamental
Well,
trees and we don't do it in-house?
Well, we do most of our tree trimming is done by an outside company as it is.
Okay, so most of it.
Yeah, so it's.
So we
it's
don't
a
have any
black
guys
linen.
that can come in and do this?
We do a little bit of pruning throughout the year, but this is, on the ornamental trees, it's just a little bit different.
Okay, now the Owen Jacks Rec Center, Councilman Bacamino and I had a meeting with the residents over the weekend, and considering out there where the mulch would be by, the outside and everything, there was also graffiti. And I don't know if you already heard about that.
Yep, and we have already written up.
You've already, okay.
Yep.
So that will be removed, right?
Yes.
Some very foul things written out there for the kids to see.
Yes.
Is it possible, and as the parks here, I see, the city center, and then I see, but mostly Owen Jacks Recreation Center, are we looking at getting any type of security cameras
Yes,
out
we
there?
are. Yes, we are.
Okay, so we're going to get some security cameras in some of our parks that need it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. That was basically what I really wanted to address. We need to, we've got a problem,
Yes.
and
it's every community.
No, and we're not unique. It's just,
Yep.
but we have to face it, and we have to face it aggressively. So if we can get some cameras in there somehow, amen to you.
Already in the works.
Okay, that was it. Thank you.
Motion by Coligio, support by Bacamino. Any further discussion? Ms. Coligio?
Yes.
Mr. Bacamino? Yes. This had to do with yes. Mr. Stevens?
Sorry, I was just rereading what we were voting on. Yes.
And Mr. Werner?
Yes.
Mr. Sadowski?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. St. Pierre, yes. Next item, Mr. Secretary.
Item 18, audience, an opportunity for citizen participation.
Oh, I have to read out. Okay, members of the audience wishing to address council may do so by first completing the form provided and handing it to the court reporter. Speakers are reminded that they have 3 minutes to address council, and that when the timer sounds or asked by the chairman, they must conclude their comments. Speakers are further reminded to please state your name, place of residence for the record, and the council members are prohibited from answering questions or commenting during audience participation. And I will hold up a sign indicating that there's 1 minute so we do not disturb you and you can get through your presentation. The first person is Tony, police.
I've been asked to act a little bit more like my brother Sam instead of the mild Tony. So my name is Antonio Pulici, very tired of my hot Italian heritage. I was also asked to turn around and wave. Jim, stay better. You know who I mean. I really don't have too much to say, but I don't know if I'm the only one that's catching this or not, but it seems to me that when Kelly raises her hand to ask a question or something, it looks kind of funny at the president's desk there that you don't look like you're ready to, you're not respecting her. I might as well say it. I don't think you're respecting her enough. The park by Owen Jacks, I went to that meeting that they did, and there was a very friendly meeting. Hopefully the friends and neighbors will get together and help each other out. But I got to tell you, whoever designed that park to get into Owen Jacks, needs his head examined. We went around it a couple of times, and once you miss the first entrance off of Van Dyke, you got to go around and around again. There's no entrance as you come around. One looks like an entrance, but it's to the garage or something. Got to look into that. I had something else to say, but I was, is this new? Is this the same one? Well, okay. But again, I don't think I am not going to say anything more, but I hope this new group gets together real good. And what's the name? The thing I will say one more time is that where are all the people coming to this council meeting? I think the council sometimes thinks that nobody gives a damn about what's going on in the city, but you can bet your bottom dollar that I do, and there are a lot of other people that do, and they don't like some of the stuff that's going on the council, and thank you for the minute warning.
Next is Connie and Charlie Shami. Thank you. Next one is Patricia D. Zalowski. And please correct me if I'm wrong. Jezlowski. I knew it.
Not as prepared as last time, I'm afraid. My name is Pat Jetchowski. I live on Regal in Warren, and I've been a citizen of Warren for 39 years. I've been to other city council meetings, but currently I came in January to address the flooding problem. And I had mentioned at that time that we had been flooded twice in 6 months, and it was significant. I mentioned at that time just how much money I had spent personally and how much I had done to try to protect my home from flooding. In the meantime now, I have found out some other things that may have complicated. There's an aging process throughout the nation in infrastructure, and that's been throughout history. One of the things that I think may have complicated Warren's situation, in talking with people, I found that Warren did go up quickly and that there was a lot of grafted corruption at the time. So there were a lot of shortcuts and things that were not upheld. We're paying for our city forefathers' sins at the time. I'm very concerned at this point as to where we're going to go from here. I understand that there's supposed to be a town hall meeting at some point to have citizens and what have you come and address the city council and the powers that be to see what we can do. And the city engineer seems to be very competent. An issue that she raised, which I have found personally, is when you deal with contractors, I'd like to know how much research does the city do as to these contractors' reputation, past projects, when these jobs were done, how they were done, the quality of the materials and the work. Are they held accountable if their work is found to be inferior or needing of repair? How accountable are they? This sort of thing. And I would hope that the city would look at some of that. One of the things that concerns me, I'm interested in health and that sort of thing, but it was interesting that when Mayor Fouts called, he mentioned that the city had spent $40 million on, I believe it was this facility. I'm wondering about the infrastructure. In 15 years since the last lawsuit that I know of was filed, I wonder how much has been done, and I'm concerned. And I'm concerned about how we handle different things, even if it has to do with the salvage place on Groesbeck that was discussed last year, or last meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person is Henry Kirchhoffschick.
Christoph, longtime resident of the city of Warren. You know, Cecil St. Pierre, I've got to take issue on the word of fiduciary. You said that all 7 council people have a fiduciary responsibility to the city. You're right, I agree. Only if it's generic to the city. But when you go into the district, it's an address, it's a lot, it's stationary. That belongs to that district person. You're taking that out of context. And that'll always be an issue with me. You're violating the charter. Otherwise, why do we need a district? In other words, if you people have a fiduciary responsibility to all of us, why do I have to call Cecil St. Pierre if I have a problem? Why can't I call Sadowski? Or Green? Or Warner? I don't have to talk to Sadowski if I don't want to. That's based on what your president said. You have people have no responsibility in the districts. What is his responsibility in the district? Nothing? Why have we got the districts? Number 2, I'd like to compliment Kelly Colugio on her effort of following up on the rentals and the inadequacy that Cecil St. Pierre wrote into the ordinance 8 years ago or more. Did a bad job, and he's very surprised. Here's a rookie that he continues cutting her off all the time, every time she has an idea, because she's showing them up. You keep that up, and I have to thank her very much for looking out for the taxpayers' dollars when you're going to put a bond or a performance bond on this. And you're the only one that I could remember that checks if these are rental units, Cecil. Well, better not say that. You might want to sue me like you threatened several times. The point being is, We need more people like Kelly. We have to have her look into these things and continue looking at it and protect our tax dollars instead of the lumps of coals they're sitting up there and nodding their heads and probably cursing her out under their breath that she's taken up too much time. Keep it up, Kelly. You've got my support. Thank you.
Next person is Grace. Address Warren.
Hey, Cecil, I can hear you mumbling through this amplifier I got, okay? I don't appreciate that comment.
First off, I don't want anybody to think that if me and another citizen disagree on something, that it makes a division between us. So, and you should mark today because it may never happen again. I'm here tonight to talk about a very serious thing. The person that brought me into Warren politics was Pat Lucas over a little house that you destroyed and pretty well cut her heart out. She died last week. And I want you to remember when you're sitting up there, especially you, Mr. St. Pierre, since you were on the council at that time, that you took no consideration, the city took no consideration to even repair the damage you did after you tore her heart out and tore that building down. And it was a historical building on top of it. We have certain rules for certain people, and then we ignore others. That's not right. It should be the same rules for everybody, and that never should have happened. But it got worse. Pat became 89 years old, almost 90. Her daughter tried to take care of things at a bank. They wouldn't take her durable power of attorney. So she went to our circuit court, probate court in Mount Clemens, to sit there and try to get guardianship of her mom so she could help take care of stuff. She spent $360. This woman fought for what she had. And she is probably the biggest hero probably of anybody I know. And her daughter was not given the guardianship even though she obviously had a durable power of attorney appointing her. The court gave it to a lawyer that happened to used to work for the city of Warren. Something's really fishy with our probate court right now. It's been under investigation in 2004 for not paying bills, not taking care of stuff. It has also been in trouble in 2008 for a judge who is still on the bench for estate and also for wills not being properly addressed. I'm fighting for a person that has been taken out of their home that was a Warren citizen. I have cleaned that house. I have followed everything possible. I've been accused of doing things that I definitely would not do, like not taking her to a doctor. It doesn't even make sense. I don't think there's a person up there knowing me that knows I would not take care of somebody. They have taken her out of her home. They took her out by cops. They were going to take Pat Lucas by cops. They were going to sell her house. They were turned around and said they put a freeze on her money where she couldn't even get money to eat. And this is a normal thing that's going on. Anybody having a trouble with the probate court, I want you to call Grace at 586-806-1413. Because as a city, you should care about your citizens and you should be calling yourself or finding out what's going on. I have more than enough paperwork. Thank you. And God bless Pat Lucas for fighting you.
Chris Pasternak.
Good evening. I'd like to advise you of a couple of things that you violated the Open Meetings Act. Number one, Councilman Stevens, your side conversations with Council President Cecil St. Pierre and the City Attorney are a violation of the Open Meetings Act. If you were to read it, you would understand that. Also, I have a right not to have my name spoken at the meeting as well or recorded. according to the Open Meetings Act. Read it and you might find that out. Councilman Balcamino, I'd invite you to go drive around District 5, especially around midnight, and listen for school bells going off within the district. Just be careful and don't get a speeding ticket. Told you there was going to be issues with that park at Owen Jack's. Graffiti already. But it's never open, so I'm trying to figure out how they got in there to get the graffiti on there. Bringing this issue up again, all the doors are locked back here except for these two right here. That's an issue. Another violation of the Open Meetings Act. It also says authorized personnel only. Well, if I'm authorized to enter here, am I authorized to come on the stage? Another question I'm asking again. At a committee of the whole, I believe it was, according to Rose Furlong, there was a decrease in the grant in the CDBG, but yet there was some discussion that there was an increase in administrative costs. Why is that? The grant goes down, but the costs go up. Doesn't make sense to me. Part of that, Henry Bowman, in charge of our Parks and Rec Department, wants $50,000 paid to Owen Jacks to pay for salaries out of that grant. He also wants a new sign on Chicago at a park that isn't built yet, a nice sign that's put up with lights, LED signs, which is kind of interesting because the one in front of City Hall still doesn't work, but that's all right. Talk about Heritage Village. I'm talking a little fast, I'm sorry, but I only got 3 minutes.
Right.
Heritage Village, apparently, I might have heard this wrong, but he said 12 accounts at $50,000, or is it $50,000 for all 12? Whatever it is, if it's 12 accounts at $50,000, figure that's 6 more appointees for the mayor. Another thing, if 20% of all accounts aren't paid for through water bills, $10 million in the water bill budget is what I thought I heard said. That's about $2 million not paid. Could pay for another 20 appointees. Good luck, Mayor.
James McDaniel?
First off, Kelly, thank you very much. Jim McDaniel, 11051 Hudson. Thank you very much for coming down Friday and listening to the citizens of the south end of Warren about this rental problem. You too, Mr. Bacamino, Mr. Stevens, you were a little late, but you got some issues too, I heard from a lot of people. MDJ LLC, you guys abated one of their houses. They have over close to 1,500 worth of sidewalk repairs we'll probably never collect on, and Maxwell House is already tore down. They were all purchased in 1/30/2010. How in the heck are we going to claim back that demolition cost? They owe for concrete. Well, Mr. Fouts, I remember doing nuisance abatement for the city of Warren freely and willingly because I was trying to be a good citizen. I told everybody the minute I stopped that people would start overlooking houses that I brought to the city, remember? Well, guess what? Here's one, 6816 Jackson. It was overlooked the very first year of the mayor's administration in 2008 when they did the blight sweeps. The building permit was issued in 1996 under Bonkowski. Do you remember that, Scott? Do you remember that, Green? Do you remember that, Stevens? And I brought it to y'all. It was put in nuisance abatement in 2009. Permits were pulled for a special permit in 2008. Guess what? It slipped through the crack again. All the permits are expired. But yet you come after me for my sidewalks. You come after me for my grass. This is a rental property. What are you going to do? Give them more permits and let them slip through the crack for another 4 years? So when this goes back up for nuisance abatement again, which it will, I hope and pray you don't talk to this man, I see the 1 minute, and demo his dang house. Because he doesn't give a hoot about this city, just like some of you people up there seem like you don't give a hoot either. The tide is turning, my friends. It's going to come back around. It's like a dog chasing a tail. Sooner or later, you're going to catch it, and it's going to hurt. And we're going to be there to watch. Thank you again, Kelly. I hope you keep it up. Any suggestions I can give you free and clearly call and ask me, and I'll give you every one of them. Because I know at least you'll do something.
Yeah, the rest of them just sit up there. You're right. Robin, 11376 Young.
Well, I'm going to preempt my comment. My time isn't up, but that's not what I was going to preempt it
You're
with.
just starting.
I'm sorry, but it is not my job to fill your life with joy today. Number one, Mr. President of the Council, I did not authorize you to give the audience my address. You did that with one other person that has already come up here to put the comment of Warren. If we want to give our address, we give our address. You also are not allowed to make a comment during my conversation, which is a second violation. I should get one more minute because of these two flagrant violations that you have had. Yes, frown at me. I don't care. I haven't been here for a while. But I want my comments to be put in the minutes. I want to see them verbatim in the minutes. My entire conversation. Number one, Henry Bowman, I am letting you know formally on record, the parking lot outside needs repairs. There's 3 lights out. Also, at Owen Jack's, there is a light that is out by the building. Scott Stevens saw it. I was escorted out that night by him and another resident of the city. I parked down where the light was not lit. When are these going to be worked on? The third thing, coming to this meeting, this building, this room should have been sealed off. It is unsafe. There is an electrical plug in the back that does not have a cover on it, that somebody shorted it out. It has going up and down. It has smoke marks on it. It's back on the wall where the 2 police officers are sitting. Are they guarding that plug? I don't think so. My last thing is, last Thursday, I received an interesting warning that was strongly posted on my aluminum door to the point where I could not open my door from the inside without severely pushing it and wondering what it was. My doorbell works. A human hand knocks. That's called communication. What was the warning for? Rubbish, garbage, debris on my property. What was the offense? Yes, I still have my Christmas up. Christmas in March. I was told to take my Christmas decorations down. I had 5 days to do it in, or I would be issued a ticket, potentially go to court because I was not going to take them down, and pay a $1,000 fine. For Christmas decorations? I don't think so. I called Kelly. I wanted to know. I already knew in my heart there's no ordinance for Christmas decorations or any kind of decorations. She took care of it. Sitting in the audience right now are 2 people. One is a city inspector and probably the one that did the complaint. Whether they come up here to this podium or not, I am defending the fact that I keep my property neat. Christmas taking it down is not a priority. When I do, Easter eggs are going to go up in my trees. But I also have Christmas decorations on the side of my house. The warning said the front property. Come on, this is something...
It's been 3 minutes. In 3 minutes and 30-some seconds, could you conclude your remarks, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Whether I am a renter or a homeowner, I have rights in the city of Warren. I've lived here for 24 years. I have rights. How about using some common sense on our inspectors? When there is true blight, clean the blight up. Christmas decorations or Easter are not blight.
Thank you. The next person is Joseph Hunt.
Council Joe Hunt, 8306 Stanley, that's District 2.
Thanks, Kelly, Mr. Bacamino, Mr. Stevens, for the Owen Jacks talk about the rental ordinance. I think it was a really relaxed environment, and the idea is that there's way too much paperwork in the city, and you have to go to multiple departments, and if you all put it together in a packet and maybe put it up on the website, and that way people aren't confused as which departments to have to talk to. And thank you, Mr. Sadowski, for coming by and taking pictures of the chewed-up street there. Hopefully someone in engineering could bump my bad road up on the list of road repairs. I don't think Zuniga did a good job in my neighborhood the last time, so I'm going to lobby engineering to get Mattioli. They do a very good job. Earlier this evening, we had Mr. Polakowski here, and he chewed up 40 minutes of the clock talking about the water meter replacement program. However, none of the questions that were submitted to council was actually asked or answered. And that was really a concern about the program because the idea is that we send stuff in an email to council, all of council, and we really don't get an acknowledgement back, which is sort of bad. I mean, the idea behind it with the National Field Services, none of this equipment, the beeper units that go inside the house, are actually owned by the city of Warren. And the idea is that it never went through planning, building, or zoning, which means that these units, the DCUs that are on the 12 emergency alert towers, are in essence giving National Field Service a telecommunication franchise. And I think the idea about putting everybody's water bill on the website for anybody to see, that's social engineering. I'm dead set against it. I think it's a violation of Fourth Amendment right to the constitutional effects, and I can pursue it through different avenues. I mean, the idea is that all we really wanted to do 9 months ago is get the safety specifications and the manuals from McClure. That's all we really wanted was safety specifications. And 9 months later, we still can't look at it. We've heard ideas about that it's copywritten and that it's a trade secret and that Aclara doesn't want anybody to know any information about their device. But at the same time, the idea is that the city of Warren doesn't own the device. One of my delayed FOIAs, I figure I would hold off on putting a FOIA at a time and wait for it. Pretty much Chapter 15.3b of the city charter says that the water department is supposed to submit quarterly reports to council regarding the physical and financial well-being of the water system. And according to this FOIA, it's been denied. And the idea is that quarterly reports are almost a mandate for any corporations of which the city of Warren is a corporate body. So I'd like to find out why it is that the water department has not submitted quarterly reports and why it is that council may not actually require this to happen. But I know that this is a closing time here. It took me 90 days to get the Board of Review meeting minutes from December, and now that I've gotten them, they're not complete. Under Open Meetings Act, it's 8 days. Maybe everyone could actually talk to these boards and authorities and have a copy of the Open Meetings Act sent to them so that we're all on the same page.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Karen Springer.
Karen Springer, 7520 Hudson. I see some improvement. I see you trying real hard to make amends, but we do need to follow through on the education part of the law. When there is a conflict in the law, and there's not clarity of the law, and there's disputes of which law has precedence, the housing law that was referred to this evening, which I'm not familiar with at all, versus the charter, versus our ordinances, versus the Constitution, common law, and the Constitution of the state, which are statute laws. As a legislative body, if it's that confusing, do the declarating statement. Ask the Attorney General, the prosecuting attorney, for interpretation and clarity of these issues so that we, the citizens, when we say the Open Meeting Act is being violated, you have a clear understanding not to violate the Open Meeting Act. We can move forward in our ability to communicate better, function better, understand your function as a legislative body according to charter. Live up to the responsibility. Be proud of what you're supposed to be doing as a legislative body. You're spending our money. You're making intelligent decisions. Some of you understand it better than others. Work together better. Keep the education going with the people. These meetings are wonderful to go to. I'm proud that Kelly and Bacamino and Mr. Green showed up to hear the real concerns of the people and to take the appropriate action. Communication is a two-way street. A complaint process is also another way to get action done. Without the complaint process and without the letter of consideration and the notice that we were talking about today to the owner of the property, that is a very reasonable step. It clarifies the responsibility of the owner. It also clarifies the responsibility of the law to be informed to the owner of the property, because without knowing the law, both sides are sometimes in violation of it because we don't understand the law. You know the law, but it's the interpretation of the law that seems to be confusing tonight. So please, do your homework well. Educate yourself as well as the public about the law.
Gloria Sanker.
Good evening, Council. Before we get started, may I ask, before my time gets started, to have a moment of silence for Pat Lucas? I just found out, as you did, that Pat passed away. Many of us will remember that Pat was a very, very good citizen and a friend of Warren. She was here often till 2 o'clock in the morning, listening at these meetings and offering all kinds of help and suggestions. There is a beatitude that says, "Those who thirst for justice shall be satisfied." I'm sure that Pat, in her eternal reward, is more than satisfied tonight. Thank you, Pat, for all you've done for Warren. Could we ask for a moment of silence?
We can have a moment of silence for
Thank you.
Pat.
Thank you, Council. As a country, we are finally going to do something to stand up for religious freedom in cities across this country. On Friday, March the 23rd at noon, people are going to meet at the federal building on Michigan Avenue called the Patrick McNamara Federal Building. They are going to silently protest in defense of religious freedom against the president's HHS mandate that has become an attack on individual liberty. It's all about standing up for their First Amendment rights. The unified cry of the rally is, "We will not stand idle while this president destroys the freedoms that make this country so great." This has been called the Road to Repeal rally because American people want this horrible and unjust law overturned and repealed. President Obama's HHS, the Health and Human Services mandate, affects everyone, but especially youth in the most grave way. If this progression is to be allowed, our young people will be the ones who will pay the price with the loss of their freedoms. This rally is a fight for America and for religious freedom, a constitutional right that belongs to every American and a basic human right that belongs to every human being. Government's interference in mandating laws that are against the conscience of the church of all denominations has become an all battle on religious liberty. Instead of life-ending mandates, we want our government to provide life-giving mandates, especially when we, the taxpayers, have to pay for them. Individual liberties are in jeopardy. Indeed, the power granted to the federal government under Obamacare is boundless, and Washington will have growing leverage to make decisions that alter our lives in ways that we can't even predict. And I do hope that you will go into this website. It's called standupforreligiousfreedom.com, standupforreligiousfreedom.com, and it will tell you about this rally that will be Friday, March 23rd at noon at the Patrick McNamara Building. Thank you.
Thomas Mania.
Good evening, Council. Tomas Banya, resident of District 2. Mr. Bacamino, why do you keep talking to the court recorder? Are you interrupting her? You know, she may not be able to hear everything.
Wait. Let's address the council.
I'm addressing his performance, and you interrupted me, and you interrupted me, and you both violated your rules of procedures.
We're not touching
First of
on
all,
personal matters.
And now you're interrupting me, ma'am. 3 lights in this room are turned off. Months ago, I came up here, I talked about them, that they were broken. They're still broken. There was an idea brought up about having a picture of the truck for the National Field Services. I can tell you the vehicle that came to my house was not a truck, it was a car. So it'd probably not be the perfect idea there. In regards to Owen Jacks Park, tens of thousands of dollars were spent on cameras for that facility, and they have yet to be installed. Don't know why. Just to remind this council in regards to violations of the Open Meetings Act, if you violate the Open Meetings Act, it says this: a public official who intentionally violates this act shall be personally liable in a civil action for actual and exemplary damages of not more than $500 total, plus court costs and actual attorney fees to a person or group of persons bringing the action. Cecil, you had an item on the agenda. This isn't against you. You had an item on the agenda this evening. That should have been under council business or under miscellaneous course. It's not your fault. It's Mr. Stevens' fault. Should have been there, but it wasn't. Don't know why. You don't follow your own council rules of procedure anyhow. Another thing. Cecil made a comment during my last FOIA appeal, and it hasn't been put in the record. Don't know why. Next thing here. Mr. Stevens, you made a comment to me about, it seems like I grabbed the wrong pile. Oh well. You made a comment to me about something in the charter that it says ex officios are allowed to speak at public meetings, and that you're an ex officio and non-voting member of all boards and commissions. Well, Section 7.7, which I don't have in front of me, in fact, does say that you're an ex officio, and Planning Commission's officers list also says you're an ex officio. But if you read the legal opinion that was written last fall, actually, that was written during the summer, says ex officio members are supposed to be silent. In fact, ex officio members aren't supposed to exist. They're supposed to be liaisons. So is it that we want to pick on Donna Comartin and we don't want to apply the rules to everyone? It doesn't make any sense to me. Next thing I'm going to speak about is Heritage Village. Spoke about this at the DD. Oh, by the way, Mr. Stevens, that FOIA that I paid for and didn't get, it's right here. Last thing I'm going to speak about is the DDA, or about Heritage Village. 33% of the properties abutting 12 Mile are boarded up. And that's what you want to present as the golden grail of the city of Warren? What an embarrassment, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great evening.
Any motions to adjourn? Next item, Mr. Secretary. Motion to adjourn.
Next item is council calendar of pending matters, if anybody has any concerns there. If not, item 21, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn with discussion.
Mr. Bacamino. Any support?
With discussion.
Support by Stevens. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned unanimously.
Hey, by the way, Cecil, I'm still waiting for those 2 answers, which I will haunt you if you don't give it to me.